YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. We have a box. We're gonna open it before your very eyes. Here we go. If you guys are brand new to the channel, this is Brian Phillips RC. The camera crew is on the other side of the camera, as you can probably imagine. She is my wife of many years.
This is where I like to be.
This is something all new to Brian Phillips RC, and it's actually a fairly new item, but it's not brand new, but it's pretty dang new. So we're super excited to be part of it, and you're gonna see right along with us. So anyway, the excitement continues. Now this box is a little bit strange, and I'll explain the details behind that in just mere moments, okay? You guys may have, okay. All right, here goes nothing. So I gotta be a little bit careful how I open this. Okay, so the packaging on this, full disclosure, is gonna be a little different for yours if you choose to follow the links in the video description below. And we'll also give you more details about that as we go. So this was, what do we have here? It's an M4 Max. Yes, except strangely enough, this is, well, hold on, let me just double check in here real quick. Oh boy, look at that pretty thing. It's just right there, ready to rock and roll. Oh, so pretty. Okay, so a couple things to consider. Ours comes pre-assembled, yours will not, because I have friends in high places. Thank you, Clay, at Buddy RC. Buddy RC worked with us on this video. Okay, so we have the tail parts here. Okay, you can see some other loose ends. And then this, I believe, is a battery, an XT60 grabber, which incidentally, mine broke on the M4, which we are gonna do these as far as we can do them so that you can kind of see what the difference is. The M4 Max is going to give us more size, which is gonna allow for a lower head speed and still very good flight characteristics. Now, as I always say when we do helis, I'm more of a fixed wing expert than I am any heli expert, okay? So I'm just gonna be the first to admit that, so please be nice to me. We are gonna set this up with a flybarless controller from Spectrum. We're gonna use our NX10. This is the flight controller and receiver we're using. This is SRXL2 on the satellite. You can add a second one of those. You can also buy this alone, the flight controller, the FC6250HX, which is a flight controller. You can buy this separate, but I like buying them together because it's a lot cheaper that way in this case. And then of course the NX10 will work fine. Now, obviously we already set this up in the M4. If you guys are looking for M4 content, you accidentally stumbled onto the M4 Max, which is what we're doing today, then all you have to do is look in the video description below. We're probably gonna link to this. That looks beautiful. But it also looks very much the same as what we have over here on the M4. And that's part of what we're trying to show is the differences here so that you can see what we're talking about. There's not a lot of differences on the canopy, as you can tell. Different color choices, okay? So we'll just leave that down here for now. But as we work through this partial build, we're gonna point out what we need to point out just so you guys know what you're getting into. Of course, a little bag of tricks here. Looks like some extras. This is probably gonna be maybe something for the tail rotors, okay? So it does say something on there. I'm not sure if it says Max. Not sure. Well, we'll get back to that. So at any rate, thanks buddy for working with us on this. We know that we're not heli experts, but we do really like working with you guys. And it was cool. We hung out with them at Knoll last year, at Joe Knoll. And we hope we'll see you there this year if we end up making it. Now, of course, I'm gonna unpackage this. I don't wanna let the money shot out right away, but we're gonna get there. Okay, so we have some blades here. And for those of you that are wondering, yeah, there is an M7 coming soon. You may have seen some stuff. So we'll link to that in the video description below as well, but they may not be available yet. Oh, it's so beautiful. Ultimate 420, what? For protection, remove before use. Strange. Why? That is so weird.
I don't remember seeing that before.
Like, it's not very big.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it would be removed automatically. Okay, so let's talk about size. First of all, beautiful blades. We've come to expect that with these. And you can see there is not a huge difference in size, but this is 420 millimeters compared to 385. So if you imagine that extra little bit, can actually make a big difference. Glittery white finish, and just give them a shot down the length of that. It's so gorgeous. And then once you get it in focus, let me know, and I'll flip. So sweet. And just absolutely beautiful. These carbon fiber blades just make me smile. Really strong, really resilient. Okay, so again, M4 Max, meaning that it is a little bigger than its little sister, the M4, okay? And why do we care that it's a little bit bigger? Because obviously, bigger is better, or so I've been told.
Size matters?
Yes. Yes, that's true. Okay, so we're just gonna leave these down here, and obviously the build portion of this has largely been done by my buddy Clay, who helped me out, and thank you, Clay, because he loves building helis, and I love flying them. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do this carefully without knocking all my stuff off on the ground.
Can I slide these
Oh, it's so gorgeous. Oh, I can't wait to see this thing. Oh, it's like Christmas Day. Holy crap, look at the tail boom assembly. It's huge. Wow, look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. I didn't realize there's gonna be such a big difference in size, but this thing has a bigger boom. Everything else looks the same in the swash assembly here. He left my wires unplugged for safety reasons. And then this is the battery that or OMP. I like to call them OMP Hobby because I like to do things that annoy you just for fun.
just for fun.
OMP, Ohio Model Products Hobby.com out of China, okay? So let's show the size differences. Now, this boom is gonna be a lot bigger, okay? As you can see.
Oh, wow.
It's way more girthy. And then this one has that weird five-sided area there, okay? So as you can see, a little bit more boom length. Obviously we have a similar assembly here and belt-driven tail rotor, which is really nice. Of course, everything feels really solid. This looks nicer than the M4, okay? So that's pretty sweet. That feels like less resistance than mine. Probably because an expert built it.
I was gonna say, I'm just glad we didn't have to build it.
So now there is also one other thing I just noticed. If you show them, the skids are white.
I did notice that.
So I don't know if I'm gonna like that or dislike that, but that's the way it is. So if you guys like the black skids, and by the way, that is an empty box now, folks. By the way, I just wanted to point out one detail. This box is the box for the M7.
Disassembled.
The M7.
Yeah.
This box, this is not everything, but that's the box for the M4 canopy. So it's about double the size to get the whole heli box. M7, M4 Max. It's gonna be huge. So at this normal part of the video, we would start building, but we don't need to build as much this time, just for the simple fact that Clay helped us out and got us started. If you want to see the build on the M4, they're ultra close, okay? Now there's gonna be minor deviations in details from here to there, but essentially it's gonna be the same helicopter with the exception of a little bit different boom size and a little bit different assembly down here on the tail, but we are gonna be putting the tail together here shortly. Okay, so why are we watching this video? This is an Unbox build radio setup, right? Yes, it is. We're gonna show you how to put in the radio system, okay? So one of the most intimidating parts of building one of these helicopters that can actually hurt you is knowing that you're the one that hurts yourself. So please use your best caution and care when you're doing helis because they are more dangerous than planes inherently. They're faster spinning parts. And I want you guys to be safe and follow whatever rules you're comfortable with following. But in our case, we're gonna go ahead and do the best we can. We're gonna double check any of the points that we're concerned about, and then we're gonna obviously call up and talk with Clay if there's any questions that come up in the meantime. That's what I would suggest you do. If you get a buddy in this hobby, Buddy RC is a good place to be, and they are gonna help you just like they help us out. So it's really cool to have support in this hobby. That's one of the reasons why we really like working with the guys down at Buddy. All right, so without further ado, we have to get ready to start doing setup on this. But in order to do setup on this, we have to probably go ahead and put the tail feathers in, I'm assuming. Or we could just leave them off and we could set everything up. The only thing I'm concerned about is if I would have things spinning the wrong direction, which really, there's only one thing that spins the wrong direction because they are hooked together. Because keep in mind, we only have one ESC and it's right there. The ESC, oh, and I can give you a shot of that because this battery slides out by squeezing together here. And then it slides back out. Now this is the OMP 22.8, so that'd be 6S. And as you can see here, 7DC. That's 6S1 position, so 6S1P. Okay, that stands for parallel. I'm not sure why that's 1P, but there used to be 2 packs in parallel. They would say like 3S2P or something like that. And that would be 3S, and then 2 of them in parallel would still be a 3S pack. All right, so what's the size on this one? 2600, right? Where did I see that? Or did I see 2600? No, it's 2000. 2000. Okay, so you can see 2000. Yep, there's 2000. So I kind of want to keep this position the way it is. That's one thing I like about these Helis is once you get the battery set up, you just slide it out and you're ready to rock and roll. Now keep in mind that battery does not come with yours either, but we will link to this particular offering, and then we'll link to an offering that would be more consistent with what we're used to using. But just keep in mind, what we use are smart packs, and smart packs are generally going to be rated at a different C level. So like in this case, this would be a 50C pack. This, of course, being rated as a 70C pack, but just keep in mind larger connectors, smart technology. It's kind of handy to have those things when you're pushing all the current we're pushing. We also have this Gens Ace pack, which is a 45C 2600 6S. And so we're gonna have that thing charging as well. And so let's just pop this thing out while we're getting ready to move on to the next step, and we'll go ahead and get this plugged into the charger. Now keep in mind, if you're using smart chargers that we would normally use, just remember, because this has an XT60 connector, we do have to plug in an adapter, and the adapter has to go into, of course, a suitable plug. And in this case, the balance lead is quite short. So if you guys are new to using these smart chargers, you may find that sometimes with super short balance leads, it gets to be in a bit of a pain, but I can always get it done. I just don't like putting pressure on my connectors. So once you're plugged in, being this is a dumb pack as opposed to a smart pack, I have to go in and set this to the correct speed, which is going to be 2 amps or 2000 milliamps. Okay, it's going to automatically detect how many cells it is, and then we're going to hit start. So it's going to charge at 1S, or excuse me, 1C rather. So 1C meaning the charge rate is the same as the discharge classification. All right, so our next move on this thing is going to be get our radio system started. Now, there's 2 trains of thought to setting up the radio system on this Heli. For me, I can either copy in my radio the entire M4 and just copy it to a new model, and I'd probably be okay doing that. And then I could just guide you over to the M4, and you could watch that video and watch me stumble and bumble. But I'm not sure if that's the way we're gonna do it on this one. I think we're gonna go ahead and go through the process of setting up the transmitter, because I wanna give you guys the full story, okay? Because it's important for you to learn along with us, because I wanna equip you to be able to use expensive technology, which, by the way, the Spectrum Heli technology, that receiver combos are in or about 200 bucks. That's actually pretty cheap in the echelon of Helis like this. So you can spend considerably more on alternative offerings. Okay, so follow the link for that if you want to buy the same thing we're going to use. Obviously, there's going to be other options out there, and we're aware of it, but we're going to show you exactly the process. So in terms of unboxing, obviously the NX10 has been fine for us. And this thing comes in a singular package, which is nice. If you decide to order this in a pair, I need my knife again. If you decide to order it as a pair, just remember that you'll have to bind them at some point, so be prepared to do that. But in our case, we're going to be already bound up and ready through this Spectrum bind button. You can just press it. SRXL2 is the newer protocol, so it uses 4 wires instead of 3 like SRX or SRX. SRL, I think that's what it is. Anyway, that used 3 wires, guys. So it was like a serial connection. Okay, got some different stickers. This is the helicopter fly barless system. Okay, and then this is for the satellite receiver. And then it comes equipped in the box with the actual flight controller here. This one's spatially aware. Comes with a couple of these double-sided tape. And then we've got a number of cables here that would get you hooked up to the satellite receivers. Okay. So this wire would go in here. And it's, whoops. You got to line it up. You see how that's keyed up at the top? That's the way that's going to go. Okay. You guys hear that? That's a push button. And we've got the diversity antenna, which is nice. This is a small package, okay? So easy to control. Keep those antennas from going up into your prop or your rotor or your belt or any of the moving parts, which I need to remind you, the moving parts here are somewhat protected from the actual canopy, but just keep in mind, okay, so I have to tighten that shaft on the, oh no, it's spinning. See, it's spinning now? Mm-hmm. So that's somewhat protected by this guard, but there is not infinite amounts of protection. So just be aware that there is a moving part right here on that bell housing of your stator on the motor, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff out of the way, and we have to get things mounted. And so obviously mounting the receiver is usually a pretty straightforward process when it comes to helis, because we know approximately where we need it, because there's really only one place designed to receive a receiver on a heli, okay? So in that case, it's right here. It's the same as what we've done in the past, okay? And you're probably thinking to yourself, how do you know where to mount this? Well, because we've done this before. It's gonna go like that, okay? But what I'd like to do is, I'd like to plug in wherever this goes, okay? And I don't remember where that goes. I think it goes here. But we'll have to look into it and come right back. All right, guys, so unusually, I'm gonna open the manual to page 1. That's literally the first page. I think it's the first, is it the first page? Sorry, second page. And it's got a picture right here. So it shows you go to that first set of pins here, okay? Now, how do you tell where signal is? Well, you look right there and it says minus plus signal, but it's sort of ambiguous. I'm just gonna tell you the signal goes up. Signal is orange in this case, then red is power, and then brown is ground, okay? Also, this has a protective cover on it, which I'm peeling off now. Ooh, so beautiful. Camera crew's gonna take that because she loves those things. And then obviously, because we have this wire here goes to the electronic speed control right here. And then I believe this would be like a programming cable for the electronic speed control. What kind of is that a Predator ESC? Nope, that's an OMP Hobby 85 amp ESC. Show the people right there. And then look, they have a huge, look at that thing. That thing is giant, DS3515T. That's gonna be the rudder servo. It is big, which is awesome because I'm gonna tell you something. On that helicopter, the rudder servo gets a little toasty. So anyway, these digital servos are extremely fast, and they're expensive. So try not to burn them out if you can avoid it. Okay, so now that we've got that plugged in, we can take the side cutters. And it's full disclosure, if you guys are wanting to see our build of the M4, I don't blame you for wanting to see that, but just keep in mind, we even time-lapsed that because it was a longer process. Mm-hmm. Clay said he spent about 3 hours on this, but he would be a really good builder. And I'm not so much. So we'll find out. Anyway, all right, so this is the ESC. So we know the ESC goes into port 1, but you would use port 2 if it was a smart ESC, okay? That gives you your smart telemetry then. So in this case, it's gonna go right here. So port 1, okay? Just like that, with the yellow being disconnected right now. All right, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 wires. Okay, now what are the 4 wires? There's one wire here that goes to this digital servo. There's one wire here that goes to the next digital servo, one wire here that goes to this digital servo, and then wire down here that comes from that digital servo. So if you kind of chase along, you can see where the wires go. And I always like to give it a once over and make sure everything is free of the things like the bell housing. Okay, so this one here is gonna be our rudder. And so what we have to do is there are some forward programming steps that will tell us where to plug in, okay? and what you're going to plug in. And it speaks to it kind of here in the manual, if you work through the manual. See how it's kind of different? If you're using a smart ESC, it's going to interrupt. Okay, so like the tail server is going to go over here. Okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and probably at this point, I'd like to plug in the wires before I stick this thing down, make sure I can reach everything first. So I know approximately where things are going to go. I would like to have the wires tucked in here just for cleanness. But, you know, to be honest with you, that makes it a real bearcat to work on the helicopter. And so you can see what I've done here. I had everything came in from the back. And I think that's kind of the normal way that people generally do this. Okay. So it just comes in from the back. So we're going to point it out the tail of the heli. Okay. So now keep in mind, you know, if you guys know better than me, and I'm sure you do, some of you watching this video, you can give me advice and put it in the comments down below. We'll be glad to read it and learn as much as we can learn. And it's really a privilege and an honor to serve the RC community the way that we do. And we hope that you guys can take with a grain of salt the stuff I'm saying. If I say it wrong, give me a break, because building these helis is not my normal gig. So I love doing helis, but I don't do very many of them. Okay. So please be patient with me. All right. So tail rotor servo is going to go to 5, it looks like. Okay. So 5, and that's going up. Now, the reason I did that one first is because these 3, I don't know how it's going to lay out, and it probably doesn't really matter yet, because what's going to happen is I'll have to play with those anyway. And so what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to pick and choose and just stick them in there, and we'll guess and check for a little later, because we want to go to servo A, servo B, servo C right here, because we have a normal ESC. Okay. So now again, I don't know which one's which. It doesn't really matter yet, because I'm just going to swap them. I don't believe it's going to damage anything, is what I'm getting at. Okay. So just make sure the orange goes up. Okay. And then my objective here is that at some point here in the very near future, I'm going to get this thing stuck down right there at or about that spot. I just want to make sure all my wires, this one I need to twist. Cable management, and as you go, I found to always be the easiest way. Granted, we are going to have to redo a little bit of this just because we're not 100% sure which wire is going to attach to which servo. Okay. So I'm just kind of looking in here to see how much depth I can get. And I want to keep access to those plugs there on the side. You're blocking my light. Can you go over to your left? Thank you. See that? And then on this side, same thing. We're not going to add any telemetry apparatus to this beyond what's included. Okay. So now I'm going to pop out this central one if it does come out. Yeah, it does. Okay. And then I'm just going to use this outer one here. All right. So I'll keep that hollow in the center. It doesn't actually necessarily need to do anything super fancy. Okay. So as you can see, what we're going to do is we're going to take and stick them right here. Whoops. We're going to stick them right here. I should have left the backing on the other side. That was kind of dumb. And we're going to slide this in here. Now, guys, if you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, what we're going to do on this channel is just the same as what we would do with an airplane, is we're going to try to give you guys the start to finish as close as we can do. Now, in this case, obviously, we had somebody else physically put these parts together. And you can watch the M4 build if you want to see the full detail on that. We'll link to it in the video description below. But in terms of the radio setup, that's where most people need help as it comes to airplanes. And then, of course, in my case, as it comes to helis. And so we want to try to help as much as we possibly can. And so what we're going to do on this one is we're going to just show that radio setup portion. So if you guys are jumping, you're just tuning in and you're thinking, but normally you would build the whole thing from scratch. Yes, that's true. So, and we plan to continue doing that. It's just that this is a nuance for us, these helis. Okay. And as we progress through the ranks, we want to do a little bit more and more of this, which is pretty exciting. Okay, so I'm going to stick this down. I think I want to do the same thing. On my last heli, I wanted to put it there because it just, it seemed like it made sense to do that. But then we erred on the side of, well, what if I need to get into this somehow? Then I don't want to have to take them both off. So I'm going to just do a nice little 45-degree bend and just pull that cable And I think what we might have done is we might have gone under this last time. Did we do that last time?
I think so, but it doesn't look like there's an opening as much this time.
Yeah, it might be a little bit tighter, but I think I can get it up there. Let's try.
Just so you don't have such a bend in the cable, you mean?
Yeah, it's just that carbon fiber tends to be sharp on the edges, so you got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to cut and chafe your cables. And just keep in mind, and make no mistake, guys, carbon fiber is a conductive material. So it's not like you're just cutting it on a piece of glass or something. Carbon is conductive, so you have to be a little bit careful that you don't actually dead short it. Okay, so I want to see if I'll grab a screwdriver, like a real small one. That's not the one I meant. Let's grab this one. And here's my plan. I'm just going to try to get this down in that crack and see if I can walk that connector up. Yeah, that might work if I can get my finger on it. So guys, we'll go ahead and go through this whole radio setup with you, kind of start to finish, so to speak. And if we leave you asking too many questions, our apologies in advance. We'll do our best to answer them in the comments below. And if you guys are heli experts watching this and you're just kind of rooting for me to get into the helis a little bit more, the best thing you can do to help me get into helis more is to support me in my efforts and to support the rest of our audience by helping answer some of the questions that come up. And you'll know when I won't know. So you can just answer them for me. That'd be great. Thanks. Plus then, I mean, we're in this community of RC enthusiasts, and there's no reason we can't help each other as we kind of work through the ranks. That is exactly what we've always tried to do. Now, it'd be nice to turn this sideways, but then I'm afraid we're going to have a lot of potential pressure on the cables, and I'd like to get these out and just get them away so that they avoid this clump of carbon fiber and this giant magnetic field and everything. Just, you know, give us the best crack at success sort of thing, you know? So I think that's going to be pretty good there. Now this is kind of long and skinny, but I think what I'll do is I'll actually cut that down and see if I can use that, 2 pieces of it. So I'm just going to use some side cutters to clip this. Pretty easy to cut when there's still wax paper on there. So folks, if you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC and you're starting to kind of get an idea of what we're all about, what we do is we unbox these things, we build them, and then we set them up in such a way that hopefully you can follow along at home. And if you're brand new to the hobby or maybe just returning to the hobby, we can help get you up to speed so that you can do a lot of this stuff yourself at some point, okay? Now, make no mistake, if you're afraid of asking for help or if you just don't do it generally, don't feel bad. That's the way most of us are. But there's a lot of times in this hobby I have found that I have to ask for help. And I have just swallowed my pride in those moments, and I hope that you guys can tell. I love doing this, but I also don't want to give bad advice, especially when it comes to stuff that could turn into a bit of a safety concern. So I'm going to err on the side of maybe not telling you something if I'm not 100% sure on the helis, okay? So if you see something that I've missed, it might have been on purpose because I wasn't 100% certain, okay? So that's now stuck down. And just remember, the spatial awareness is going to be in the flight controller, not necessarily in the satellite receiver, okay? All right, great. So now that we've got that separated, now we can go ahead and start. We don't want to do cable management yet because these cables need to be tied together at some point. So our next move is probably to get a battery and get our profile made in the transmitter. Now I am very tempted to just make a profile and copy our profile from the other helicopter that we've built. And we may end up starting that way just to have a little starting point. But the truth is, I kind of want to show you guys start to finish. So we're going to do that right away. So stay tuned. All right, so I got a random battery. This happens to be a 1300 6S. Has absolutely nothing to do with this helicopter. And I was just double checking to see if that fit in there because that'd be kind of handy if it did. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to make a new profile for this heli. And then we're going to bind to our transmitter. And then we're going to get our stuff figured out, okay? So first things first, you got to turn on your transmitter, okay? It's going to take a second to turn on. It's really taking its sweet time today, okay? Get some beaver, canceling back, scroll all the way down. That's on bottle 40. Holy crap, that's a long ways back.
A long time ago.
Okay, so we're going to go add new model. We're gonna change it from acro to heli. Now we're gonna create. So somebody asked me the other day while I was in my comments, can you call out what you're doing for button presses? And I'm like, I just don't know if I can do that on top of all the other blabbing we're doing in these builds. But the truth is, when you click this, that's basically the main choice. And then scrolling left or right is the main impact. And then you have back and cancel takes you wherever it takes you. So it's kind of intuitive once you use it once or twice. And it's true across all the Airwear products. Oh, by the way, while we were paused, I put some smart stickers on here. So eat your heart out, OMP. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here, model type, that's already been set. Don't change it, it'll reset everything. Model name, this is not gonna be Heli, it's gonna be the M4 Max, so we'll come right back. All right, so we have the M4 Max by OMP Hobby, okay? So we'll hit back, swash type, normal. And you're like, wait, hold on. And then we'll play with this stuff later. Frame rate, I want to set to hybrid. RF, automatic, okay, automatic, and then hybrid, okay? And then I think we should be able to just jump straight into throttle cut. I'm setting it to switch H. And I want to make sure that's at -100, which it is. Good. Throttle cuts off. Now it's going up and down. And throttle cuts back on. You can incidentally see what channel is doing different things here, okay? But that's not gonna tell you much of anything on, oh yeah, it will. Channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. That'd be your aileron, elevator, and rudder. Okay, well that's kind of cool. I didn't notice that before. But the first thing we do is we set up forward programming on this, and then we're gonna have to adjust the linkages. So with respect to that, oh, and that's right, I have to remember, this is a super nice handy dandy tool that my buddy Clay also sent me, and this is not normally included. I didn't realize that's what it was. Oh, this is the tool, guys. Oh. It's a special tool that's designed to adjust these turnbuckles, folks. Look at that fancy dance. Amazing. Very cool, very nifty. And so, yeah, so thanks, Clay. By the way, if you guys want to order something like this, we will have links in our video description below so that you can get one and then help him lick his wounds from having given up his tool to Brian, because he did have one. And I feel bad because I actually have crescent wrenches and things that are small, but the head of this is very small. Mm-hmm. So you can get it into tight spots and actually do the adjustments. And by the way, this is aluminum, okay? So it's really sturdy. I had a heck of a time adjusting those on the M4 because I was trying to use, I think, something of a needle nose plier. All right, so anyway, let's go into, sorry, I just remember that, folks. I had to bring that up because that's going to be what we do after we get these things energized and figure out which one's which. All right, so continuing down, we're going to get ready to bind, okay? And you're like, but Brian, you don't even have like anything done. Yes, you are correct. Average viewer,
I'm just gonna do this anyway.
You are exactly correct. Okay. And we can do this now because not only is our motor unplugged, that also disassociates any sort of spinning from the tail, okay? Because they're attached mechanically together by belt. And so I'm just gonna plug in whatever 6S we have handy. Okay, and that's going to energize our flight controller. You can see a red flash, which indicates you'd be screwed. And then I'm gonna press this button and it's gonna wake up. So now it will bind, disconnect our, okay, bind. DSMX 11 milliseconds telemetry is what she said. Bind complete, very good. Now we have a green flashing light, which means you not be as screwed.
Be slightly less screwed.
Slightly less screwed. Okay, so first things first, uh-oh, nothing works. Nothing works. But that's by design because we don't have the frame rate set up right for any of this crap. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go, oh, and by the way, also, there is a warning scenario on power up. I wanna test them. First of all, throttle cuts on. I'm gonna jump over to monitor. Throttle cuts on. I wanna make sure that thing don't move. It does not, okay? So once I unplug this, I'm gonna de-energize everything. I'm actually gonna power cycle my transmitter too. And the only reason I go through these extra checks and balances is because when I'm dealing with something that I'm not super comfortable with, I tend to err on the safe side. I do the things that I would normally skip over when I trust myself and my best judgment. My best judgment is that I don't trust myself, okay? So first things first, you always wanna be in command and control of your vehicle. So you turn on your transmitter first, you wait for this super lengthy process of startup. And by the way, yours is probably gonna be quicker because you don't have as many models in your transmitter, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so it's on, it's got a timer. Scrolling over to monitor, I check my throttle stick is down. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this on. I'm not gonna go through the bind procedure this time, don't have to. And as you can see, we immediately get connection on the satellite receiver, and we've got a green "you not be screwed" feedback from the system. Pretty cool. Okay, now I'm gonna click. I'm gonna go down to forward programming, and we're gonna jump straight in, and we're gonna go to swash plate. Don't have to mess with it. We're gonna go to setup. Then we're gonna go to swash plate. Then we're gonna go to output setup, type. That is not correct. 3 servos, 120 degrees apart, looks like what we've got here. But I think that might actually be what we have here, because as you can see, there's 3 servos. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And you can look at the way the swash is set up. See, that's one way, that's the other way. I honestly don't know which one would be correct.
I feel like it's the other one.
I think it's actually that one.
Yeah.
Because the way the armature is, and I did this, pretty sure I did that on the M4, and I had to reverse all 3 of them. But I think this is correct, because that's the front of the Heli, if I remember right. Okay, so let's go with that. Now I'll just show you what the rest of them look like. Okay, so 135 degrees is definitely not what we're dealing with here. And we're definitely not like a T set up there. So I think we do this.
I agree.
Okay, all right, so let's go back. Let's go to frame rate. I believe these are 333, and it springs to life, as you can see. That's always nice. So it's already going the right direction. Up, down. Okay, there's up, there's down. So that's reverse. And I don't want, well, actually it's not reverse because, you know, this is the correct direction. Wow, that moved. Oh, it just moved because it relaxed its grip. See, it moved the tail. See this? That's hilarious. Look what's happening. It's walking around. That scared me pretty good though. All right, so as you can see, we have the type, and then the direction, of course, is going to be, I'm assuming, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct, but that's incorrect. Nope, that's down, and that's up. That's down, and that's up, right? Or is that? That's down, and that's up. I gotta do some checking here, guys. Let's look at the other helicopter. Just to be clear, these blades, if they're the same as this is the front blade. It's gonna go this way. I have to assume that I have this correct. Man, that is tight. Why is that so tight? Good lordy lord. That is extremely tight. I'm gonna have to look into that. Okay, so there's up and there's down. So that would not be correct. Unless I have the blade in there backward, which I'm gonna go look at the other helicopter right now. No, that's the same way I've got it over there. So I'm pretty sure that's correct. And you know what else I'm gonna do, just because I don't trust myself? I'm gonna look at some pictures. Did we not have pictures?
We don't.
We
I
don't
have them pulled up. We can go look at them.
Okay, so we'll go look at them and come back. Okay, so it's supposed to spin counterclockwise looking from the top down. That is correct. As I expected it would be initially. But like I said, I second guess myself on Helis because I just don't do this all the time. Whew, that is a really tight grip on there. I don't even know if it's supposed to be that tight. That seems too tight to me. But anyway, all right, so let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so moving up, that would actually produce a negative pitch. So I don't know if I need to reverse all 3. There's up, there's neutral-ish, okay, and there's down. Okay, so now let's put that blade back into the really stiff socket. So as you can see, I just want to make sure I don't damage anything because I am super excited to fly this heli. Okay, so that's in there now. And so as you can tell, that would produce an upward pitch and that would produce a downward pitch. Very good, right? Now the other thing that's kind of cool is you see on the side here, you see those lines? They're lined up perfectly. Now you can come in here and you can look and see if you're lined up perfectly, which we are. Oh, that's nice.
Oh, I see.
Yep. So now I'm going to lower all the way down and then I'm going to go all the way up. Wow, that's like perfect. So they're centered. Okay. Now look at this back one. It's not centered. See? So we can actually straighten that now. You want to see how, guys? Because I know this is not necessarily the perfect time, but it's like, is it really a perfect time? Yes. But I'm going to still do a little bit right now. See this? Now I can adjust this turnbuckle until that thing gets square. So I need to bring this back toward me. See how it's walking toward the mark? We're going to give you guys a shot from above here in a sec. Oh man, that is so much easier than what we did last time.
Whatever we did last time was terrible.
Holy cow. Okay, so now I'm going to bring that back square. And I want you guys to just look at those hash marks. You're going to have to probably zoom or turn the light on or something. You guys see what I'm talking about? That thing there is pretty dang close. Now I want you to look at the other one. Is it square? Mm-hmm. Now look at this one. Is this one square? Mm-hmm. Well, you got to get over the top of it. Goodness gracious. It could, ooh. Okay. I think we're dang close. We're probably as close as the human eye is going to get us. Now, that gets us even on one pitch axis, which is nice, okay? Now you can say, that's going backward, that's going backward. So what this does for me is it gets me confused because that means that we probably are hooked up to the wrong channel still, right? Because if that's up and that's down, then that should still, at neutral, that should still cause the swash to go that way, and it's not. Probably because we don't have this hooked up correctly. So before we continue in this effort, guys, I am really sorry, I just realized. Watch this. Type A, B, and C. You remember in our manual it said A, B, and C? Mm-hmm. Now we can figure out which one's A, which one's B, and which one's C now. Just to refresh your memory, here's A, B, and C. Okay, so channel 2 is A, 3 is B, and C is 4. And then over here, you would just skip the 2 and you would go past it if you were using a smart ESC, okay? So we're not in this case. We're using the provided ESC, which is perfectly fine. 85 amps, 6S, everything's fine there. I'm just gonna put these antennas back here to get them out of the way. You wanna protect that 28 millimeter section so it doesn't get damaged or impacted somehow. And you don't wanna kink this stuff because it's a coax cable. Okay, so I'm just like literally trying not to kink or damage my antennas, and I'm just passing them through here to get them out of the way. Okay, so that's fine. That's not where they're gonna stay. It's just as I'm working the wires. Now I'm gonna disconnect one wire at a time and see which one's which.
And this one's easy to tell from over here because it's the one that chases just right along that outside. Isn't there only one of them?
So that one would be, according to this drawing, A. So I have that in the wrong socket, which explains why it's going the wrong direction.
Okay.
And process of elimination will make this easier. So A is gonna go into the number 2 hole, okay? So there's number 2. Then this one here, yeah, that one's kind of tough. There's one that's longer, yeah, they're about the same. So this one would be either that or this, right? See, there's only one that's not moving here, guys. It's that one. So that one is...
Which would be the B one.
That'd be B. So that one needs to move over 1 to this socket. And then this one needs to go into the middle. Now, if you guys didn't connect the dots on exactly how we arrived at this, just rewatch the clip about 400 or 500 times until it connects. We got somewhat lucky and we just chased the wire on one of them, okay? Process of elimination will also get you there. Now, we should be able to unreverse some of this. So you can see here's the nose of the helicopter would be here. So we'll just kind of lay this the way it would sit, okay? And then you can see the A, B, and C. So A is that one. So that rolls left, that rolls right. Ooh, except it's not right. Elevator, yep. See, that should be, let's look at the type again. So B, when I unplug this, oh, you know what we did wrong? This is not right. This is not right. We actually had it right the last time. You wanna know why?
Why?
Because look, that's the way the armature assembly is built, but that's not the way the outputs are. The output is here. You're looking at the swash plate. That's actually the way the servos are mounted. Guys, I'm super embarrassed.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay, so watch, swash plate. Dang it. Go back to setup, go back to swash, go back to output setup, go to type, and then you wanna go to that one. That's the swash. Right there, you've got B, right there, you've got A, and right there, you've got C. Now I'm gonna walk back, I'm just gonna try it again. Yep, incorrect, incorrect, and incorrect. So first things first, direction, reverse, reverse, reverse. I'm gonna put it back to normal, okay? Now I'm just gonna see what happens. Okay, so this is obviously going to that one. So that one is in the, son of a gun. I have to go back into swash plate. I have to go back into output. I have to go back to type. So that's actually C for us. That's C. Okay. So C is over here on the fourth set of pins, the fourth socket, if you will. All right, and then B.
B should still be B.
B still B, and then this one I'm having trouble telling for sure which one's which. Okay, so B should be the bottom one. So B's still hooked up, but it's not. Look, B is currently disconnected.
Okay.
You see what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. If B is disconnected, that's either because the wires, no, that's wrong. That's A. This is A. How do we know? Because A is moving, right? So that one must be A. So you see it's still moving, right? Does that make sense? So now if I wanted to disconnect C, which is this one, I'll disconnect C. And then it stops moving, right? Yep, see? And then when I plug C back in, it starts moving. Now this one must be then B. So I'm gonna go under, and then I'm gonna slide this through here. Okay, so there's A, B, and C. So that's backward and backward. So I'm gonna click, and I'm gonna go to direction, and I'm gonna reverse, reverse, and reverse, and see what happens. So roll left, roll right, roll back, roll forward, throttle up, throttle down. Oh yeah! So that's the stick conditions that need to be true. All the way up, all the way down, stuck it in the middle, roll left, roll right, tip forward, tip back. And just remember, whatever this swash plate's doing is what the whole assembly is gonna do when it's spinning at a high rate of speed. All right, so now we can look from above. We're gonna get that centered. Then we're gonna look above and see if our hash marks are still aligned. It looks like this one's just a hair too far now. So I'm back this back up just a hair. Man, Clay, you were right. That thing is super, super easy to use. I would like to see a baby crescent wrench. It's got really long fingers. So it's got a thicker head and then a thin finger that goes forward. That would work really nice for this sort of thing. Just saying. You're welcome for the good idea, tool builders. You already probably make 17 different styles. Okay, so first things first. Now that we have everything moving in the right direction, we still have to get the tail to work, and the tail is obviously not gonna work yet, okay? So now that we got those going reversed, 333, type, direction, sub trim. We don't need to do any sub trim, do we? That should be neutral. Did it go to the center? I think that brought it to the absolute center position. Oh yes, that's so awesome, look. So that took us to the absolute center position. And so as you can see, it's lined up right there in the absolute center.
Nice.
So what we don't have to do is we don't have to do much there. And then I think at this point, this is where you could say, okay, I want to use my pitch gauge, my digital pitch gauge to see, you know, where we are here. And I'm just like looking at it. And I remember the last time we did this, I felt like the pitch gauge was the biggest waste of time of everything we did.
What?
So I'm just gonna leave that at 0.
Okay.
Okay. So now if I were to put that at neutral, right in the middle of the stick, then we should be centered. And then this is right in the middle of the stick, so we should be centered. Okay. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go E-ring, phasing, decay. I have no freaking clue what any of that crap means. Tail rotor, output setup. So this is a frame rate is gonna be, gosh, I wish I knew. We're gonna have to double check on this and come right back. All right, so we're back. You may notice it's dark. There's a little bit of time has passed, and a couple things. First of all, we found out that we are max 560 Hertz for the tail servo, okay? So I just wanna stress this enough. Normally when you set up an airplane or whatever, you center the servos, and we actually do that usually by hooking up to the receiver. But because everything is driven through forward programming on this Spectrum setup, this FC6250HX, I just want to remind you, you still have to have it mechanically centered at 110 degrees, which 115. And that was true on the M4 too. So if you're in any doubt, disconnect your linkage rod that goes back to the tail feathers. It's not tail feathers. This would be the tail rotor. And you can disconnect it here or you can disconnect it here, but just keep in mind the ball joint that comes off the back of this is pointed in so it can contact the body of the servo. And it's made of metal. It's just gonna break itself, okay? So be careful about that. You don't wanna break the servo. That's an expensive servo, by the way. And so just remember the 115 degrees is like this, okay? So when you're doing that assembly, you see how the ball link goes down, like it would hit itself if you go to 100% of stroke. So just be careful that you don't do that. Also, this linkage only has so much flexibility because it's carbon fiber. It will bend a little bit, but it's gonna pull and bend like this at the end of stroke, okay? So how do we know that? Because we've been playing with this a little bit off camera, admittedly. So we're just gonna show you the couple of steps that we skipped off camera to verify. And one thing you can do too is you can use the XBC battery checker. I have a 3S random battery hooked up, and I'm just gonna show you right from Virgin. So this is what it would look like when you first hook up your smart battery to the actual device. And you click and you scroll down to the 760, and then you can see there's your 560 Hertz, okay? Show them a really close up shot, okay? And then you can click and that will help you to center your servo. And then you can double click and it will do a sweep. It'll sweep like that. And you can set up how big of a step you want as well. And the step is set right here. Servo step 20, okay? So that's where you would do your 560 Hertz. And then if you're used to testing like the normal servos, this would be a 50 Hertz servo, which would be more like what you would have on an airplane that we fly normally. So 50 Hertz compared to 560, guys, so it's like a lot more speed. And so just to be clear, that's the one you go into, okay? Then you would just plug in your servo just like any other time, and you can actually move this to validate your positioning that you're not gonna crash it, okay? So you'll wanna step like this a little bit and step like this a little bit, and that's gonna help you figure out your endpoints. In our case, we got to about half before we were running into the front half of this housing, okay? So we disconnected it back here by just unscrewing this. Now that's because Clay put this together for me. You'll be building it so you can actually just figure that out as you go. I had to depend on somebody else having centered stuff. And so because I had to depend on somebody else, I had to test it, okay? You may not need to test yours, okay? But that's how you do it. And I always mix up what the 760 and the 1520, these two settings are, the 760 and the 1520. Okay, so this speed, okay, versus this speed, right? So we're done with that more or less, so we can put that off to the side because we're not gonna disconnect. We already had it plugged into the right spot. We're going to use the same random 1300 milliamp 6S for testing. This happens to be a 40C. It doesn't really matter. It's literally just a test fixture for us. It happens to have an XT60, so it makes it easy. Now, as you guys know, we're disconnected here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and just let that initiate. Okay. So as you can see, everything's moving. And I just want to talk about this. On these Helis, it's weird because what'll happen is it's already correcting for stabilization. But when you move this, you see mine's not overdriving and it's not bending anything right now. You see how it's not forcing it out past? I'm going to show you how I did that. Okay. Right here. Look at this. It's not running into this or that. See how it's clear? And it's clear, and this rod is lubricated nicely, okay? But then also it has room to move, to correct, or try to correct, to stop the helicopter from moving, okay? See that? So that's always good to know. So how do you do that? We're gonna click, we're gonna go back and pick up where we left off in forward programming, under setup. You do have to have the Heli energized for this if I hadn't mentioned that earlier. We already did the swash plate setup because we have everything goes forward, backward, left, and right. So we're gonna go into tail rotor. We're gonna go to output settings. This is where you would set that. It would be blank by default. If you set the wrong one, it changes the absolute position of all this. So don't change that once you have it correct, okay? The direction is normal in my case. I believe we're going the right direction too. And then sub trim, we're not setting any sub trim, but we could later. And then the travel, you remember how we did that in the servo tester? Okay. What I did in this, because I already knew we were about halfway, I started way low, like this. And then what I did is I moved the stick to the left and I said, look at this position here. I clicked and I just increased this. You see how it's moving, 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 moving. You can hear the squeal of the servo in real life. I don't know if you guys can on mic, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back, I already know the 55 is where I want it, so I'm gonna put that back to 55. But then on the right, this was the extreme we reached first. So I'm gonna move it to the right. Now look at this gap here where my fingernail was. You guys see this? Overdriving, you hear it hum. You don't want to hear it hum. So 60 is about where it starts bumping into the edge. See, now I backed it off and it stopped bumping. So I am going to 55 so that I don't have something actually overshoot. I want to stop just shy of where I want to be, okay? Then I'm going to match the left to the right. So you don't know if it's the left or the right that's going to be your extreme until you get in there and play with it, okay? Now mine, full disclosure, was off by 115 degrees, a little bit one way or the other. So you'll just want to make sure if you're not exactly 115 degrees, because your servo's mounted like this, that's 115 degrees. If you're like 4 or 5 degrees this way compared to like 2 degrees that way, you want to be the 2 degrees one. The closer of the two positions based on the spline of your servo is going to dictate which one you go with. Also, when you're done, you want to make sure nothing is binding. So you're going to physically just look over everything. Okay, now spatially changing this is going to change the way it's responding. Okay, this is the other place you're going to check, and the camera crew is going to get way down there, so you're going to turn the light on. You guys see this as I move? That's an extreme. You're going to have to get lower than that because you can't even see it. I want them to see this ball joint.
Here, I can hold it up then while you're doing that.
You got to actually hold it though. You guys see this? As it moves, you got to make sure you're not hitting the body of the servo. Okay, let go. I'll take this. So what we're going to do is the camera crew is going to move this stick right here, and I'm going to actually point this where we need to see, because I want you guys to see exactly what I'm talking about. Look at that servo body. Move it left, now move it right. You see how it's not touching? And slow. You guys see what I'm talking about right there? That ball link is clear of the servo case. Okay? And those endpoints are digitally set. Okay? I'm going to yield the camera back to the camera crew. So that's very critical because this flight controller has no clue. It will overdrive that into a concrete wall. Okay? Make sense? So now that we've set that, guys, now all we need to do is just back up. And of course, if the direction was wrong, you would just swap the direction. And then if the sub trim was wrong, then you would change the sub trim. But you know what else just happened? It just centered it, okay? See this? Highlight the sub trim, change it one way, change it the other. So just be kind of careful. It doesn't jump on you too bad. I don't know if you can see both at the same time, but what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna pull this over here. And this is one of the few times that the helicopter goes to the center. So you want this to be about 90 degrees. See how it says sub trim 0? I'm gonna highlight it again. You guys see how it's sliding across and it's sliding back the other way? See how little of an impact that has? To be honest with you, it looks like that would be sub-trimmed almost centered. So I don't know if I need to sub-trim that to square so it's at 90 degrees because then there's no impact, but you have to remember, if I clear that to 0, this thing is already gonna have centripetal force going and it might need a little bit just to get started. I don't know that for a fact, but I think I want this mostly square, okay? So if I click this again, I'd be going a positive value and I'd be going something like 30, let's say 30. Whoops. And it doesn't even move. So I'm gonna walk back and I wanna make sure I don't overdrive now. See, I'm still hitting the ends and it's clear, okay? But when I let go, it doesn't center itself. I have to kind of bring it to center and then leave it because the flight controller is always correcting. You can see this rock as I move it. Make sense? So I've got my sub trim set. I've got my travel set. And I think we're good there. Now I'm just gonna, now that I have sub trim and travel set, I'm gonna do re-inspect my absolute position of all my controls to the maximum and the minimum. And I'm making sure I'm not hitting the cabinet of the servo, and I'm making sure I don't have a big bend as it moves. Because if I have a big bend, I can relieve this and move it a little bit, and it'll give me more room to bend. So if this is braced way down here, it may actually bend worse for you, you see? Because you can see this movement, like that. Boom, boom. Watch it when I go to the extremes, okay? And just keep in mind, this is not going to go to the extremes often because that would be, your helicopter would be, going fast because there's a lot of power being taken off of this main rotor with that system, okay? All right, so now that we've talked about all that, we can start confirming the directions or reconfirming the directions. Lean forward, lean back. So camera crew is gonna look with us. I'm gonna kind of tend to point this in the direction the helicopter is gonna fly. So lean forward, lean back, lean to the left, lean to the right. So this swash plate, which is right here, is gonna give us our absolute position right now. And I wanna just let go of the sticks and see if it goes neutral. And you can see that it's not square because this is, the collective, is gonna move up. And when we get that thing to the middle, just like we did earlier, we want that to be square and lined up as we can get it. When this stick is square right there, which is easier said than done, I want those things to line up perfectly. Okay? So you guys see they're not quite perfectly lined up, but they're pretty dang close. So what I want to do is I want to verify that that's not a position of the helicopter thing. It's not. So what I need to do now is I need to get that thing perfectly square. So I'm going to walk out. I'm going to go to swash plate again. Output setup. Sub trim. Now look at this. Watch this. It doesn't move anymore. So that puts it exactly to the center. You see what I'm talking about? Now the tail rotor's still moving, so you still hear some noises. But guess what? Guys? This isn't moving. So this is where you can make a sub trim adjustment because you want to get all this at right angles of each other, okay? So that's where we come back to this tool again. And there is a little bit of back and forth when you're setting up these helis because you're going to have mechanical adjustment, get it as close as you can, and then you're going to have electric adjustment to fine tune, right? So I want to get this fine tuned. So first thing I'm looking at is I'm looking from this angle and this angle. I just want to make sure all these linkages are all square. Okay, right now I think this needs to come down just a little bit, and I can tell mostly from this mark, okay? So I'm gonna use this 3mm end and just walk it back. Whoops, excuse me, walk it forward. And just adjust this turnbuckle until it's square. Now remember, you can only get it so perfect, and then once it's close enough, then you'll fly it and you'll get some more trimming if you need to. Okay, so now this one, same thing. I'm gonna do the exact same thing to bring that so it's lined up perfectly right there. Okay, so this is where it pays to be super picky, because the more picky you are now, the better your helicopter is gonna fly out of box. And then you can fight it with other characteristics like, you know, wind and environment and stabilization and all these things. But you gotta have the basics right, okay? So you notice these are both turned at a weird angle now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this tool and I'm gonna slide it on there and just push that so that it's square, so it's in the center. See how it's centered now? Even and even, okay? And I'm gonna do the same thing here. Now you don't probably need the tool to do this. I just brace this and then move it until it's square. So the ball link is square. Now, the other thing I wanna do is I wanna just look at the swash, this thing, and make sure that it's square, the swash plate. So this one here looks pretty dang good, and you have to just get your head down there and look at it. So the camera crew doesn't know what she's looking at, so I'm gonna try my best. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna square yourself up to the aircraft, and you're gonna say, okay, so does that OMP hobby swash right here, does that look square with the world? Or does this need to come down just a hair? Because there's two ways to do that. You could do sub trim if you wanted to bring this down just a hair, or you could take your tool and you could hook this on here and bring this down just a hair. But I don't think we're too bad, because usually what we're gonna look at, sorry, the focus, I'm gonna turn on the light here. What you want is you want a 90-degree angle here, okay? At least in your sub trim, okay? In your sub trim output of 0, you want this to be square with a swash level, okay? And same thing here. It's very hard to focus on these helis, isn't it, camera crew?
It is.
Because everything wants to take the focus. Mm-hmm. And now this one's the hardest one to look at because there's not a basis for comparison on the stroke for this one. Okay, camera crew is gonna take back over. So you'll notice a notable improvement in camera work. So now that we have the basics together up here, what we need to do is we need to actually make some assembly decisions. Well, no, we'll come back to that. Okay, so I'm not gonna sub trim this at all. I don't think there's any sub trim needed. I could probably at some point soon go ahead and build on the rotors. I do eventually have to tidy up this cabling. So I guess, yeah, we're probably there. Let's go ahead and do that now. I know we're sort of in the middle of forward programming, but this is driving me nuts. So what I usually do on helis is I try to do less is more, which is something I don't normally do in real life. But I got to do less is more here because there's just not a lot to work with. So I'm going to take and just fold this back on itself. And Clay did a nice job of giving me a good starting point on this heli. So special thanks to Clay again. I know I've said it a couple of times. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but we're filming this on 2 different days. So you guys might be watching this all in one sitting, and that's fine. We're glad that you are. I want to see if I can get this through. Yeah, we'll just do that. And that should give us a nice little cable management option. And really one of the biggest things about cable management is just for me, whoa, there's the thing we were trying to find. Okay, there was a screw we dropped on the counter earlier and I just found it. So now it's on the ground. Much better on the ground than in the motor. Camera crew and I were searching feverishly for that, by the way. We were cleaning up our bags and stuff, and then I was like, where's this little screw? And that's where it was. Okay, guys, camera crew is probably gonna have to turn on the flash, and she's gonna have to not bump me on the elbow like that when I've got these weird spots. Okay. So for those of you watching at home thinking, this seems like a lot of work. Yeah, that's why it's an expensive helicopter, and it's not, you know, like a plug-in. This is hardly a plug-and-play helicopter.
Yeah.
Because you have to do the assembly before you even get to the plugging part. So this would be, I would call this like an ARF, but I don't know if they actually qualify this as an ARF or a kit.
I think it's a kit, right?
It's technically a kit,
Yeah.
is it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because yeah, when we say a kit, what we mean is like you got to build the thing, you know, basically.
Yeah, you're just gonna get bags of parts. Like
No, but it's part assembled. I mean, there's a lot of assembly done for you on this helicopter. Like this whole thing is assembled, if I recall. And that's a big part of it on a helicopter, okay? Like seriously, you can shut that light off. That'd be good.
Yeah.
We'll turn it back on if we need to see again. But all I want to do is just get these in a spot where everything is secured, and I don't have to worry about things popping out when I don't expect them to pop out. You know, we don't need like Super Bowl surprises here. Oh, I can't use that word probably. They're probably gonna sue me now.
Oh no.
It's all right, guys. Legal defense, buy things from the links in the video description below. Keep Brian out of prison. Or something like that. So now I can see this cable is doubled over itself, and I don't like that. I may have to swap that. What do you think? If I go,
What are you
yeah,
gonna
I don't think I really have anything to swap with it. Yeah, that's the problem. So I'm just trying to do the same thing I did on the other side, because that worked pretty sharp. So guys, again, this is in the eye of the beholder. That would be any cable management that you ever do on any aircraft. Brian Phillips RC will figure out a way to make it harder than it needs to be. So guys, don't watch this and think, oh my goodness, Brian, can't believe you wasted so much time doing that. You know, and I'm probably going to be less picky than some of you and more picky than others, but I would probably err on the side of more picky than others. And if you guys don't like how picky I am, I apologize. I'm not trying to drive you nuts, but this is supposed to be somewhat of a start to finish thing, even though Clay built it for me. Thank you, Clay. He loves building these things, by the way. I don't. I like flying them. I like setting them up on the radio, okay, but I don't like building them. It's just tedious to me. But he loves it, so I'm gonna let him do it. All right, guys, so you can see these are gonna be tucked in nicely. Now I just wanna get these antenna into a more appropriate spot. Now keep in mind, carbon fiber is not good for passing through with RF, radio frequency. So you can see at 90 degrees of each other would be perfect, but you don't want this to get into the rotor, any of them. Any of the rotors, either the tail rotor or this rotor. And so some people will mount this mid-boom. I don't ever do that. Some people also will mount these like that. I'm not nearly that concerned about the signal getting deteriorated to that point. Might not be a terrible spot to actually just have this go down like that and just sort of be under the hood, so to speak. But this 28 millimeter portion is the portion that actually does the work, okay? This is just carrying the signal back to the receiver, okay? Or it's a transceiver. But in our case, it's predominantly a receiver, okay? And I'm just trying to think if, you know, I'd really like it to just be there.
Can you just kind of stick it through that bundle of wires so the wires hold
I know,
it?
that's what I was tempted to do too. I just don't want to kink this, guys. If you kink, you'll cause a potential massive problem because you'll basically break contact. So I have to make a little bit of room to pass this through and just being very mindful about kinking, especially the last 28 millimeters, the exposed portion. Now, if you guys don't understand anything about RF, and if you're kind of like me, where it's like whatever I'm told is what is true, then 28 millimeters has something to do with the bandwidth of the actual size of the signal in this technical style of communication. So I don't really understand all the ins and outs, but I do know that it has to do with the wavelength, not the bandwidth, sorry. Just kind of a similar way of saying it, I suppose. Now this one I tied up here, as you can see, because there was more bundled up wire. And then this one's tied down here, so I'm gonna have to probably go ahead and... Now you're gonna notice that these are not at 90 degrees of each other. So what can happen is you can have some cancellation of signal. So I'm just gonna go as 90 degrees of that as I can do without getting weird. And I'm thinking I'm gonna try if I can just do it this way. That'd be great. Yeah, I just don't know that there's a way to control that, keep it pointed that way. So I might end up just trying to tie it here again, and then I can slide it down. I'm just not sure. I'm just more concerned about being on either side of the carbon fiber boom than anything. Now, that's where a second one of these might come in handy. You can actually buy a second one of these satellite receivers. And if you do that, then you can mount that out at the end of the boom if you're really nervous. But where we fly, it's not as big a deal. You guys might have a more populated field or have more radio frequency issues, like you're next to a cell tower or something like that where you fly, and that would be more critical. But for us, we're out in the boonies, and we got to really reach out to get our cell service. Let's put it that way. Okay. Turn on the light if you want. Thank you. Wish we could get that light to not be 5K. If it was like 5K and 3K or 2.7K or something like that. That'd be sweet, wouldn't it?
That would be nice.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, I like warmer light, especially when you're filming all the stuff we film. Because it just all looks like the same. Okay, so now we've got antenna pointed, admittedly not really at 90 degrees of each other. And so I'm trying to kind of figure a way to maybe get those to be a little bit more 90 degrees of each other. I don't think that this could actually hit the main rotor if it wanted to. So I'm just gonna double that back just a little bit. And I'm gonna just double this back just a little bit as well to keep it out of harm's way. But I want that 28 millimeters exposed, okay?
It was kind of the same on the M4 though.
I know, it was just,
same
yeah. Issue. Some people have built little antenna splitters that they 3D print, and they can slide the antennas in and they'll shoot out left and right or left and down or whatever. But I don't think we're gonna have a huge issue. If you guys are concerned, go ahead and do your due diligence that makes you comfortable. But for us, for now, I feel like that's enough cable management. We're really close to getting this heli done, okay? So now, what else do we need to do now that we have cable management done? We're gonna back out of sub trim. Why did I leave it in sub trim? Because I don't have to listen to this thing wiggle and waggle. Okay, so now it's gonna go back to neutral. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to go back to throttle. Okay, so fail-safe hover is 65. Somebody asked me about fail-safe the other day. I'm just gonna tell you this, guys. Fail-safe is important enough to your helicopter that you really need to kind of make decisions for yourself on what you're comfortable with. This guy was in Canada. They have some rules that regulate how fail-safe works on helis. To be honest with you, I don't want to give you bad legal advice, so I'm not going to give you legal advice.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is make the helicopter fly where it is if you have to do it. If you make it drop like a rock, that's, to be honest with you, you know, I feel like you're 50-50 shot of success. I mean, you're either gonna fall and be out of harm's way, or you're gonna fall and be in harm's way. Or you're gonna fall and hurt somebody, or you're gonna stay up in the air and hurt somebody. It just, you know, it's a crapshoot, man. So all these idiot legislators that wanna make this thing perfectly safe, it's never gonna be perfectly safe. It's gonna be as safe as you make it. So make it as safe as you can, and then try to keep these people off our back, and that's what we do, okay? And if everybody does that, I mean, granted, sometimes we make it look exciting and it's really not. But the truth is, some people make these look exciting and it scares me. And we've seen some world-renowned heli pilots and it's kind of scary to me. All right, so coming back. So fail-safe is hover at 65, governor, normal, soft start. I don't care about any of that crap. Now, we have 3 modes set up. So gyro settings, orientation. I changed this from 1 to 5. How did I know it was 5? I looked at the direction that that print was on the flight controller. See how it's printed that way? Okay, so then I made it look like that. That's orientation 5. That's gonna make the output, as it's called out, provided you have everything going the right direction here and everything going the right direction here, to correct in the right direction. Then you can calibrate your sensor. Now I just wanna show you what it looks like. See, it's flashing yellow, flashing yellow. You're gonna have to get that camera up there so they can see. Okay, so it's flashing fast. And then I'm just gonna, you don't need to, it's fine. Now it says complete, now it went back to white flash. Okay, because we're in forward programming. So it's kind of like that green flash means you not be screwed. The red flash means you be screwed. Okay. All right, so then it says complete. So I clicked complete and then they have a factory reset option. Okay. Now we can set up safe. I don't even mess with the governor. I don't care. I'm not gonna mess with it. Somebody might tell me to mess with it and then I will listen to your advice. Safe, stability. Okay, I've got this in normal flight mode. Our engine, our motor is disconnected. There's no rotors. There's no rotors. This thing is totally safe. If that started spinning right now, it would be kind of annoying, but it's not going to hurt anybody. But it also isn't hooked up to any sort of power source. Okay, so this is where you always want to be careful. Just check yourself if you're new with us. Stability, gang. Stability is on. Okay. Panic. Panic is commanded up here, I believe. Attitude trim. Yeah, I have no idea. Swash plate, safe, setup. Gyro settings. Okay, flight mode channel is inhibited. See how it says inhibit? Gain channel, gear. Whoops. Okay, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna go to monitor. See how it's changing? But it's not associated to any of these controls. So I'm assuming I have to, well, it looks like it's moving that, but that's just that, okay? So I'm gonna put this back to neutral. I'm gonna walk out. I'm gonna go down to system setup, disconnect RF, channel assign. Yeah, like I don't care about that being attached to anything. Gears on switch D. Aux 1 is inhibited, right, because it's used for something. So I'm gonna just go up to aux 4. I'm gonna set it to either B or flight mode. I think I'm gonna scroll over to flight mode. F mode. Okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna actually do that again. I'm gonna go back to system setup, disconnect RF. Now when I come out, there's no warning. So it's gonna check for high throttle. Throttle cuts on. Now when I go back to system setup, disconnect RF, watch this. Throttle cuts off, sticks up a little bit. It allowed it to start, okay? Throttle cuts off, but there must be a threshold for that. So let's try 75%. System setup, disconnect RF. Throttle high. Now it's safe. Throttle cuts on. I'd really like it to check for that too. So throttle cut, switch H, okay. System setup, disconnect RF. Warnings, okay. Throttle over 30, that's where that is, okay? Normal flight mode, if it's in 1 or 2, it's gonna warn you when you start. That's on this switch. So that's your normal, would be like with safe, is the way we're gonna set it up. And then there'd be idle up 1, idle up 2, or idle up, stunt 1, stunt 2, okay? And then we wanna warn for hold, okay? That makes sense? But see, it didn't do that though. Because look, throttle cut was off. See, watch. Throttle cut's on, so it didn't warn. System setup, disconnect RF. Throttle cuts off, stick is down. It doesn't warn. System setup, disconnect RF. Throttle's at like 50%. Throttle high. But it's not warning for throttle hold. I wonder if that's because I have throttle cut here, and then there is another one that says throttle hold. And I can never remember where to put that one.
Is the warning thing backwards like it is sometimes?
No, because it didn't warn when it was off.
Either? Okay.
No. So channel sign, okay, so warnings. Oh, I don't know what that is. That's weird. Oh, you can actually warn for other channels as well. But that definitely says throttle. You can't shut that off, evidently. But it doesn't seem to be working. No. That's all set. Well, guys, I'm not sure why that is. We'll run into it because I did on the M4 eventually. Okay, so throttle holds on just for safety. I'm going to walk back out of here. Now I'm going to go to in audio events. Switch changes. Telemetry warnings, maybe? No, that's not the way. That's not where. Oh, model start. There it is. It's the same thing that we have in system setup. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's definitely checking for the throttle hold. Huh, so weird. I don't know why that is. We will come back if we figure that out. So guys, do you remember what we were doing? We set flight mode to auxiliary 3. 4. Let's go over to monitor mode and look. Yeah, aux 4, okay? So now I can go into forward programming and I can go to setup. See how it says FM? There we go. It changed. It changed. Okay. So now output channel, I have no idea what that's for yet. Gain channel would be gear. Gear is assigned to switch G, which I don't understand that. I would rather have gain set up on here, but we're just gonna leave it there for now because that's the default for now. And then I wanna go back to safe. Now watch this. Stability. See? That wasn't changing before because we had never assigned a channel, just like in forward programming of an airplane, okay? So you can change the envelope. And the envelope, like for instance, you could set this envelope to like wider, which would allow you to tip the helicopter more. But then you could leave stability, which is auto leveling, on in flight mode 1, which is your stunt mode 1. And you could just open that way up. So you could tip it more, but then keep it from flipping over upside down.
Auto level.
Yep. But then you can also go to flight mode 2, but I generally leave that off in both of those modes. Now, telltale sign when you look at the rotors, the sticks, I'm gonna move the sticks up like this. There's small, subtle differences, and that has to do with the curves, okay? So now panic. I don't see anything there. Attitude trim. And I don't know what the heck that is, to be honest. I think that might just be a default. So I'm gonna leave it. So then system setup, we've already been in there. Calibrate sensor, we already did, okay? So basically at this point, we've set up everything. The only thing I can't figure out is the warning for the throttle hold. And it is definitely called out as throttle cut in this menu structure, okay? And that, I'm gonna just reset it to H. Yep, it's definitely on. And that's all it is. There's usually more, I thought. That is so weird. So digital switch setup, I'm not gonna mess with that. Gyro, the switch, they had it set. Whoops. Gear. See that? Gear. That does something. I just don't know what. Okay? C's not doing anything. E's not doing... he is doing auxiliary 2, but I don't know that it does anything. The gear switch is actually disabled from having any impact right now. So it doesn't really matter. And then F, we would normally put Expo on F, but I don't know if we really set up Expo. So, because this would normally be attached in the flight modes. But you know what? I'm gonna just set it up like I normally do on my airplanes. I don't think this is probably gonna make a bit of difference here. But you can still apply Expo to make the 6 softer if you want them, okay? So we'll start in that mode. Whoops, excuse me. Switch F. So it's 5%, then 10%, and then 20%. Okay, and we drop the rates down to 90. Okay, and then that's exactly the same on 3 axis of control. And you're like, but there is no rudder on this, it's a helicopter. Well, they're just referring to the yaw axis. Okay. So now, if we walk out of there, you should be able to see in this circumstance, I don't see any difference. So it may not even impact anything. But we'll still go with it. Okay, now the other thing too is we are gonna have a timer set. Tail curve. We don't have one on. Mixing timer. Here we go. So I want a countdown timer, 5 minutes, active. Yeah, I'm just gonna do anything over 25%. And it's just gonna start at 1 minute. I want a voice warning. At 20 seconds, I want nothing. At 10 seconds, I want a voice countdown. And expiration, I want tone and vibrate. And then a tone every minute thereafter, okay? So we are basically set up with the exception of, I gotta figure out why it's not warning us about the throttle cut. Mm-hmm. And then I gotta figure out why the gyro, so it's on switch D. Yep. You can also set it to just activate with the same switch. So if you have a 0% gyro, you can do more gyro or less gyro in each of those settings. I kind of like to have that tied back to this rather than having it on switch D, to be honest.
So you could switch it with your flight modes.
Yeah, because then the flight modes is just going to be like more gyro or less gyro, depending on what you're doing. So I might set it to like 40, and then I might set it to like 30, and then I might set it to like 25, because basically you're going to have more snappy response. Then in stunt 1, you're going to have a little bit less responsive, gyro, or maybe you want it more. I don't know. Truthfully, I'm not sure, because this is sort of out of my wheelhouse. Okay. Now the other thing is you could also just do, and by the way, it is annoying to listen to these digital servos while you're working on these, but you also, it's not just annoying. You don't want to like overheat the servos. So every once in a while, if you feel them doing stupid things, relax them, okay? I had thought about using the right knob to change my gain on the gyro, because then it would just be attached to all 3 modes.
Then you could just adjust it a little bit.
Yeah, but I think what I'm gonna do for now is I'll just set it to 40, 30, and 25, and we'll see how that works. And that is tied to then the flight mode, okay? Again, this is somewhat personal preference. And the other thing too is if you guys ever want to disconnect RF, spoken flight mode, normal, stunt 1, stunt 2, like you can change that to read the word stunt 1, stunt 2, okay? And I'm gonna do that just because it's annoying to me that it's not already changed. Stunt. Tell me if I spell it wrong, camera crew. And I use a legacy keyboard. You guys can make fun of me if you want, but I like the legacy keyboard. I'm kind of an old guy. So then flight mode 2, highlight back or cancel, that clears it. And then I can type the same thing. We'll pause while I type. Okay, so this one's stunt 2. And now it says the same thing, normal mode, okay? Pretty simple. Channel sign's already done. Trim setup, I don't think I'm gonna mess with yet. Here's a trick, guys. You can trim types, F mode, okay? And the trim's normal. So my understanding is that means that if you had this off, it'd be common for everything. But F mode means that, okay, so let's say you're in safe with auto leveling on and you're in normal mode, which is where you would typically have that stability on that's actually safe, auto leveling. And what's gonna happen is when you switch to another mode, it's gonna change the trim necessity because you're gonna be in different positions, okay? So that's why they're tied to F mode. F mode is tied here, gyro's tied here, safety is tied here. It's important because on normal mode, your motor is gonna be at 0% in this position. In stunt 1, your motor's gonna be spinning right now at like 60% or 55% or 70%. And then on stunt 2, it's gonna be like 80%. Now that's one of the reasons why the M4 Max exists, is because you can get a lower head speed with a bigger, longer, more robust prop, or in this case, rotor, okay? That's one of the things about this heli that makes it better than the M4 is, and to be honest with you, it's just gonna make it easier to fly with less insane speed, okay? So obviously we don't wanna put those on just quite yet for safety reasons and for lack of skill reasons, but we are getting really close to where we need to just do that, okay? So let's talk about the next move. So now we need to talk about throttle curve, okay? I'm gonna go back to my middle setting for X, but I don't even know if it matters. Stop, okay? So throttle cut, throttle curve. So you see how this says N, 1 and 2. So that's normal, that's 1, and that's 2. So in normal, I want, yeah, sure, Expo. That's Expo for just this mode, not Expo that I set up here. So I want 0, then 25, then, yeah, I do not want 100. I want to tap out at like, I mean, Clay was saying it's just doesn't need to be very high. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap out at like 55, 55, and then 25 down to 0. So like when you start your heli, you're gonna be down here. So the motor's not gonna spin and the prop's gonna be, you know, more or less, you know, like down, okay? But this is not the pitch curve, this is the throttle curve. And it's true in the N, normal mode. Then in idle up, I'm gonna click. I don't care if the Expo is active because it's not gonna matter because this is gonna be set to like basically spinning, okay? Right away. So I'm gonna set that to like, let's do 60, 60. So that's gonna give us our negative pitch. 60. And this is just gonna be 60 and then 60. And you're like, but good Lord, Brian, why do you have a 6S heli if you're just gonna run it at 60? Trust me. Okay, and then I'm gonna turn the Expo on, not that it matters. See, not that it matters. If I ever change it, then it will, okay? So now this one's gonna be, instead of 60, this one's gonna be like 75, okay? Which is probably too much, guys, and I'll have to play with this a little bit after our test flight. But the truth is, you have to start somewhere. And it's just like the skills that you need to make one of these helicopters happening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So if you don't know where or what to do on each of these steps, don't worry. You can copy along, but you just have to be prepared to make some adjustments afterward, okay? Normal? It's kind of weird that that's dashed out. I don't know why. So then pitch curve, this is where you're actually going to change the pitch, okay? So this one, you're not gonna wanna do a lot of negative, whoops, So go back to pitch curve, click on the N. I do want expo active for sure. Now I'm gonna set this close to 0 because you want some, you know, like maybe a little bit below 0, but not a lot. So let's say 45, then we're gonna do like 50. Well, except really, okay, so let's talk about this. So this is gonna correspond to the throttle output. So from 0 to the first 25%, that's gonna bring your throttle up. And then it's gonna go up just past half, it'll be like 55. And then when you go to stunt 1, it's gonna jump up to 65 across the board. No matter where the stick position is, the motor's gonna be going, okay? Now, it's gonna need to keep up and recover when you make big aggressive maneuvers by changing all this stuff. But the motor is gonna be demanding, or the ESC is gonna demand 65% throttle, or 60% throttle, whatever you set it to, okay? So, unlike normal mode, where as you move the stick up, there's gonna be an output change until you get to about 50%, then it's gonna just like lock itself. And then this will also then control and command an output percentage basis of your throttle pit, or of your pitch of your blades too. Okay, now for those of you that are heli guys, please forgive me. I'm trying to explain this to complete layman, which I am almost one. Okay, all right, so 45, then 50, then let's do like 55, and then let's go to like 60, and then let's go to like, you gotta remember guys, I'm not trying to make this super aggressive. Let's go, at this point, we'll go a little bit more pitch, we'll go to like 70. Okay, so you can see that curve is just like really small. The only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't look very linear. But it's okay, if I want it to look linear, I could do that. 45, 50. So we do have a little bit of negative. Now, why do I want a little bit of negative? A little bit of negative keeps you on the ground so that a gust of wind won't tip you over. If you're totally neutral and you're spinning up to speed, a little bit of down kind of keeps you sucked on the ground. But you also don't want to slam into the ground if you drop the stick and you're trying to put it down quick. So that's why a lot of times you idle up close to the ground and then you switch to neutral. Or not to neutral, but to normal. Okay, so here it is. So that's our normal setting. This is gonna almost certainly get changed. But then when we're in expo or when we're in idle up, then your pitch is demanding both up and down, so we don't really need anything. So I'm just gonna make it active, okay? So that's gonna allow you to put 100% pitch control on this stick during stunt 1 or stunt 2, okay? And the pitch is just gonna go from like all the way down to all the way up. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. Okay, does it make sense? So basically, a helicopter is different than a plane in that you have pitch control and throttle control, called a collective, where all these things go up together. You see how they all go up together? Collectively, okay? This is the cyclic, and I hope I'm not saying that backward because then everybody's gonna make fun of me, which is okay. So the cyclic is gonna lean you forward or lean you back, lean you to the right, lean you to the left. But the collective is gonna move all of them up or down, but you can see how little movement there is in normal. Now watch an idle up. It's gonna command that spin. That's sucking it to the ground, full force. That's neutral, and then that's way fast up, and then that's neutral. And then the tail, I just wanna not overdrive the servo and overheat it. Yeah, it's not too hot. Okay, so we're good. It's actually not even warm. And then in idle up 2, or stunt 2, it's going to make that spin faster, but it's the same exact pitch condition, okay? But guess what? We gotta take off sometime. So this is gonna get us into the air, and it's gonna get us flying, and guess what? When we switch to this, it's basically gonna be almost exactly where we wanna be anyway, okay? Because you're already at that position with the same control knob that's doing all the functions. Here I am yelling at you again.
Okay, so when we're watching the people that are like insane and they're on the ground and they turn it on and they just immediately take off and like shoot up in the air.
And like flip upside down and do all that
They're
crap.
like automatically in like that stunt two, and they just like immediately
They still
go
have
up.
to start in normal, but they don't have like auto leveling or any of that crap.
They just go.
Yeah, but they're really, really good.
Right.
So like you could hypothetically start this, shut off your throttle cut, and it would start spinning.
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't have a motor hooked up right
Right,
now.
right.
I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna do that. It would hurt. This thing's got some power. Okay, so that means that we're like at the point now where this thing just needs to start spinning things, okay? So which is what we're gonna do next. So I'm gonna throttle cut this. Now, just to be clear, remember, check your thing, make sure it sticks up at the right angle before you put it anywhere you don't want it, okay? That's one of the most important steps. You can use the XBC battery checker. If you guys are looking for tools like this and you don't know where to find them, just check out Brian Phillips RC. We have this in the tools and supplies, right?
I will make sure it's there.
Okay.
It's in the smart checker.
Also,
sure.
we're gonna be using a 2006S, okay? This happens to be a 70C pack, if I remember right. Just really hard to see because it's underneath the strap. 70C. This is a high voltage pack, okay? So that's 22.8 volts, okay, whatever. This is a 45C pack from Gens Ace, 22.2, it's 22.2, as opposed to 22.8. You guys catch that?
Gotcha.
So this is an HV pack, a high voltage pack, which just means that it runs a little bit higher voltage. I wonder if I have to charge that different. I have to look into that. So anyway, we'll link to the battery used because obviously OMP is gonna want you to buy their packs, but we generally fly smart stuff. Well, this calls for probably a little higher C rating than our standard smart packs. And just to clarify that with you, we also don't have small enough, generally speaking, 6S packs. We do have 50 seats, probably good enough to fly this thing just fine, but that's 6S 3200. And as you can see, this is a 2000, okay? So quite a bit shorter, but very stout still, okay? 3200 compared to 2000, look how much bigger this is. The difference between a high C pack and a low C pack is number one, marketing, okay? Number two, it's protection between cells. That means plastic or aluminum that's taped in there and it keeps them from bulging because nobody wants a bulge in the wrong spot. Well, I mean, some people do. And then thirdly, price, okay? So marketing and price are probably the two biggest components and most of it's BS.
And then a little bit of
But then there may, over here at like the 5 percentile would be better matched packs. Like, oh yeah, we put them in a machine and we balanced and they've got lower impedance or something, whatever. I don't buy that crap for a second. Go to China once, tell me how it works. The truth is, these might be slightly better, but every manufacturer that has had a good reputation eventually got a bad reputation. Just batteries are a crapshoot. Buy the best ones you can afford, you'll probably still have a better experience, slightly, statistically, on more expensive batteries. That being said, we will link to that one that was used. We'll also link to this weird tool that Clay sent out. This is his personal tool. Thank you, Clay. And yes, he personally liked putting this together for us, which was super nice. That helps us so much because this is gonna be a long video, guys, and we're just setting up the radio.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, there are other technologies. I know this is Spectrum. I'm a Horizon fanboy, everybody knows that. And I do like Spectrum stuff because I have gotten used to it. I'm learning how to get better with this. I'm also getting to the point now where I'm realizing, oh, yeah, you just have like 5 or 6 main parameters you have to get. Now there's a lot of different ways you can set this up and be successful, but there's even more ways to set it up and completely miserably fall out of the sky and blow up in a million pieces.
Let's not do that one.
Exactly. All right, so next step. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect power. Okay, so this is the battery that we don't really care about for this application, but it's gonna be there for us. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and plug this in to our ESC, our electronic speed control. Now, if you guys don't know what ESCs are, if you don't know what helicopters are, if you don't know what servos are, brushless motors versus brushed motors, you're in the right place at Brian Phillips RC. We will help bring you up to speed and get you in the fold. And speaking of fold, these wires are quite short. With regard to plugging them in, I'm not having a very good time about it. Okay, good, there it goes. And I'm just gonna go color for color, hoping that they go in the right direction. Now also, I just wanna point out the fact that when you deal with carbon fiber helicopters, the edges of the carbon fiber can be pretty freaking sharp, and it's annoying if you get, ripped on the side of these. So be careful that you don't get a bunch of that carbon fiber in your skin. Some people that are really sensitive to it, and like me, will wear gloves because we are, I can't say it on camera.
Pansies.
Pansies. Peas. I was thinking of a P word and it was definitely not pansy.
Definitely pansy.
It was pansy. Yes.
That's the word you were at.
Okay, so guys, just if you want to give them a shot from over my left shoulder into what I'm working at, then you'll be able to potentially see what the heck I'm doing.
Oh, your hand is still in
See?
the way.
Blue, black, red, blue, black, red. And just keeping in mind that that goes into the middle of the motor. You can only get it there one way. There's not a lot of flexibility on where that ends up. Now, we don't technically trust this helicopter yet, even though we have tested lots of different things. So the first thing we're gonna do is when we turn this on, we are gonna use the battery that goes with it, and we're gonna slide this into the channel. Because again, at some point we gotta test this crap, okay? Oh, and yes, we do have a balance lead here, which is nice, so we can use a voltage alarm. Okay, I'm gonna hold this. I'm going to go ahead and get it lined up, and I'm gonna plug it in. Now, if this starts spinning, absolute worst case scenario is we hold it until it stops, which means a long time. So my camera crew will taunt me until it stops, or I'll reach over and make it stop.
Right.
I know that I'm in normal mode, and I know that I have throttle cut on, and I know that my throttle stick is down. Beyond that, I am trusting that the equipment is gonna do what I believe it is supposed to do, okay? So here we go. So we're gonna plug this in. See where my hand is, I'm safe. Everybody, don't freak out. There's only so much you can do. At some point, you're gonna have to plug this crap in. I hear beeping. Okay, so first things first, everything moves still as expected. Now, I want to be careful about how fast I do this. I wanna make sure everything is working. Since it hasn't started spinning, I can test the swash. On a helicopter, you need to come over here. On a helicopter, you can watch this swash right here, okay? See how much that's tipping? Holy crap, why is that tipping so much? Okay, so what I'm doing is as you move this around, it needs to be about level. But good lordy lord, why does that look so way out of whack? Why is that so out of whack? I don't recall that being out of whack like that. That doesn't even make sense. I don't remember doing anything of the sort. Click, go down to forward programming. Swash plate. Pitch. Agility, okay. Throttle cuts on. But like, what the heck is going on with this servo? Why is this one down so bad? Did we like change that? Setup, swash plate, output setup, sub trim, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3.
See now?
We're centered.
Yeah.
What the frick is going on there? Okay, so the tail's fine. Direction. It's like way over here. Why is that like that? Okay, hold on. This is what I'm gonna do before I go any further. I'm gonna go into safe. I'm gonna go to stability. Normal, it's on, then it's off, then it's off. But you can still tell it's wanting to lean the swash like that. That's not okay. Attitude trim. See this roll? Watch this clear it. See how it says 450? What the heck? Look, there it's going back to neutral. You see it?
So why would it be?
Yeah, why the heck would it be so?
Is it changing?
You know what? I don't even understand why that would be. That is bizarro to me. It just makes me nervous.
Yeah, I know.
Because like that's so far off. Because look at this, as I scroll this to 0, look what's happening to the swash.
Is it moving?
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Okay, look. Okay, so that's pretty dang close to level. That looks pretty dang close to level. All right, so 0 and 0. Attitude trim. I set them to 0. We talked about it earlier. I want to leave it there. So now panic. I just want to see, okay, that's fine, that's fine. I have no idea what that's supposed to do. Stability, normal, then off. See, it's nice and level now. And it's nice and level. But throttle cuts on. In Ford programming, that should not start spinning up, but if it does, we would know it. So there's neutral. Everything looks pretty much correct. Whoa. Okay. So then stunt 2. Okay, good enough. So now I'm back to normal. And I want to go back to system setup, calibrate sensor. Begin. I wonder if that's where the 450 came from. And then we flip that position off camera from 1 to 5. Okay. If I did that, guys, I apologize. I don't mean to confuse anybody.
So can you go back and check?
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was under safe, stability, attitude trim. Yeah, it's still 0. Okay, good.
And it still looks square.
This is why I care, because look, when I'm in auto leveling, I want that swash to be level, because as the helicopter moves, it's gonna level itself, okay? That's what we want. If it's tipped over there, it's gonna freaking fly over there at like 30 miles an hour and crash into the nearest object. So very important to check that. So now, throttle cut is currently on. Now throttle cut's off. It's gonna start spinning after 25% stick input. There it goes. For the first time, it's a virgin move. Okay, so just going slow. So just making sure we don't have any binding. Okay, so that's basically almost 65. Now that's gonna be at 65. That's 65 as I move through the ranks. Hey, are you filming the stick too? See, that's through the ranks. Now, as I move the tail, it's moving. Everything seems to be kosher over there. And then I can tip the swash. I don't want to go too aggressive and then crash something while it's spinning. Okay, now I'm going to get this about neutral. I'm going to hold just, I mean, it doesn't have any blades on it. So now I'm going to go from there to this. Idle up, speeds it up, and also changes the pitch. Now we can go up and we can go down. Okay, looking at the tail, you can see the tail position move. And also it's gonna have stability, okay, stabilization, but not auto leveling, okay? Then stunt 2. Now it's really getting fast, okay? Everything seems like it's feeling pretty good. We're not crashing on any of the surfaces. And then I'm gonna slow it back down and bring it back to planet Earth. And if you guys want to see what failsafe looks like, I'll show you. You're in stunt 2. Okay, so check this out, guys. You really want to see what it's like? Watch this. Look what I'm doing. I'm shutting it down. Watch this. That's what failsafe looks like for me. Now I'm going to turn this back on. It's going to probably warn me as it turns back on. See how it went to the "you be screwed" mode? I told you about that. Fail safe. Normal mode. Throttle cuts off. Now we're back in control, guys. Everybody understand what just happened there? Pretty cool, huh? Except you wouldn't be saying that if your helicopter was in shambles on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay? So now, you remember, as we spool up, we want those blades to be pointed just a little teeny tiny bit down, but not like aggressively down. So that's why we don't start in this mode. So watch what happens when I throttle cut shuts off. Full speed. And well, whatever full speed is for that curve. So it's still gonna spool up slowly because we have the ESC spooling it up at the desired speed. And you'll notice it's not changing the speed at all, it's just changing the pitch. Okay, makes sense, camera crew?
Yep.
And then idle up 2, or stunt 2 rather. Now it just moves the pitch. So this is how you can fly upside down.
Right.
Or right side up. Or upside down. or TikTok or whatever it is you're doing, which I can't do because I'm not that good a pilot. Throttle cuts on, kills everything right away. All right, so there you have it, guys. This thing just needs some physical components now. I can trust this because I have turned it on, I've turned it off, I have gone in and out of setup modes, and now I am at a point where I feel comfortable that I can trust this, it's trustworthy. Now, I'm not gonna be spooling it up with the blades on in here, but at some point, I promise you, you have to put that crap on. And then you gotta make sure it's going the right direction. So at this point, I'm gonna de-energize the Heli. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and put the blades on. This is part of the build, but we do have to do it, okay? So, as you know, we've got some parts here that Clay sent with the Heli that was partially completed. And this is gonna be for the tail and for the main rotor, okay? So the tail rotor, of course, being on the tail, and then the main boom being up here. That 450 value was crazy. I'm glad we caught that.
Yeah, that was
because
really
that would have
weird.
totally crashed the Heli.
That would have been bad.
Okay, so now these look pretty sweet. Apex 71, I don't know what the heck that means. I'm sure it's probably super critical and like somebody probably had lots of heart involved in that. I have no clue about it though. I'm just double checking placement, movement, and we may need to adjust sub trims, okay? So I believe it goes like this. I'm just gonna corroborate by looking over at the M4, and that does look about right. Because this, well, actually we can put on the main rotors first. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't print the instructions on the assembly here. So I want to go double check by printing our instructions to verify with certitude what these hardware points go to. All right, so page 18 shows this instruction. It's very basic, it's very simple. It does talk about the directions, which we already sort of agreed on what we were doing by looking at the M4. But in this case, it's pretty simple stuff. What we need to do is we need to get a drive for two different sizes. I think this is 2.5 millimeter. Yeah, 2.5. These ones might be 2. And so the tail, nope, that's, I got it wrong on both. It's 1.5 for the smaller, and then I believe 2.5 for the main. Yeah, 2.5 for the main. Now these are nylocks all across the board here. So I'm reluctant to use Loctite, but you know, we probably are supposed to. The 71s do call out these washers, okay? Now, how do you know you have 71s? Because it's literally printed on there, okay? So there's one for the front and one for the back, okay? So it's just, I like sandwiching them on like that. And then you can look at the drawing. It tells you exactly what direction to put them. So I'm just gonna put this vertical. And then I'm going to lay this into the opening. I gotta get myself sit back down so that it's easier to reach. So I'm just gonna slide this back in, and the shims are gonna make it a little bit trickier to do this. I wonder if it's easier to do it sideways here. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, it's gonna work. It's just kind of a little bit awkward. Because once you get it started, it's not a big deal. But you see that one shim popped out on me, and now both of them have slid out. So the camera crew and I are gonna do our very best to make this as painless as possible for ourselves and for you viewers at home watching. If you guys wanna help support Brian Phillips RC and help us to make this a profitable experience, look no further than the video description below, or brianphillipsrc.com to find your next RC project. We'll help you get in the air. If you're brand new to the hobby, this helicopter is not for you, but it could be for you if you're coming back to the hobby or if you have lots of experience with helis. I don't have lots, I have enough. And truthfully, you do not have to be a competent 3D heli pilot to enjoy a product like this, because having a performance heli is always cool. But just remember, it's like anything else. If you get too much at the wrong time, you're more likely to crash it and have lots of tears involved. Hopefully it's not tears from pain and suffering of injury, but tears from crashing an expensive helicopter that's going to cost you a lot of time to fix. Camera crew and I are gonna, like I said, try to make this as painless as possible for you. And part of the way we do that is by doing these exhaustive long videos where we do learn things together. And yes, I am an imperfect person and I do make mistakes on camera and off. Just ask my wife. But the truth is, we love doing this for you. And so long as you keep coming back, we'll keep doing it. I'm having trouble lining this up, so I'm just kind of working it. I'm just trying to get it to bite, and then once it bites, it should slip right through. But I think what's happened is the washer is out of slight alignment issue on the back side. The washer is not quite lined up with the front side. So once I get all that lined up, oh, I just felt it bite. So it should go now. Yep, it's going. There it goes, there it goes, there it goes. First time's always harder. Then I'm gonna take this nylock with the nylon on the outside, and it's gonna lock itself, meaning that it's gonna be held tight. You can't bump that stuff when my feet are on it, I'm sorry. Good. Okay, you see what's going on? Then it's gonna hold it for you so you can just torque this down. Okay, so you see it popped out. I gotta just put a little bit of pressure on it to hold it into that nut grabber. Now, I wanna tighten this until this is tight, and then I'm gonna back it off just a hair so that this is allowed to move just a little bit, okay? And then I wanna tighten it just a little bit more. And there is probably some exact torque specifications for that, but they don't have them on that page, and so I don't know them. So I'm gonna go back to, I want it to be tight, but not too tight. Meaning if you like whack the ground, it's probably gonna mar the finish on your tail rotor, and that's not cool. But truth is, if you look at my M4, I have hit a lot. If I was a better pilot, I wouldn't. That I'm very happy with. You might want it a little looser, you might want it a little tighter. But that's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's a preference issue. The bigger issue is if you were to use the wrong blades in here, or have, you know, one that's really worn down and one that's not. If they are worn down in the same flying experience, my experience has been that they generally wear down pretty even. Like even enough to make your helicopter work. But again, it's a performance issue. And if you talk to the right heli people, they're gonna tell you that you have to replace the entire helicopter if you even bump this on the ground.
Replace the whole helicopter?
Yeah, just replace everything.
All of it. Just throw it away.
Throw it away, get a new one. And if you're that type of person, please follow the links in the video description below. Just buy 2 right now, because you never know if that squirrel's gonna jump out in front of you. Okay, so again, same thing, just trying to line them up, and it looks like we got luckier on this one until I talked about it, and then I didn't.
Of course.
I jinxed us. Oh, there it is. There, it's poke through. Camera crew, do you need the light on for this, or are they seeing?
I can see pretty good. Does that help you?
No, it's blinding.
That's what I thought. That's
but I just wanted you to give them like maybe another shot so that they could see what the heck was going on. Some of these steps, folks, when we start getting into the smaller assemblies, it's really difficult to give a good shot. I try my best to keep my hands out of the way, but I still have to actually do it.
Sheesh.
I know, so rude.
It's ridiculous.
This one's a little tighter, so I want to even them up. Okay, just a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty dang even. And they want the main rotor blades. They give a description of how tight. If you want to just read that to the people.
Properly tighten the main and tail rotor blades so that they do not fall under their own weight, but are easy to move in the blade grips. Over-tightening may cause damage to the rotor blades and compromise flight safety.
That's where everybody dies. People.
Well, I definitely don't want to do that.
Okay, so now listen. If I were to turn this on now, I would need to be careful because that would spin if I put it into stunt 1 or stunt 2. Or if I move my throttle stick up, or if I have throttle cut off, okay? So we need to be serious law about this thing from now on.
Okay.
There's no more dinking around, camera crew.
Sorry.
Safety first.
Where's your other screw?
What? Right here. Okay, so we're gonna put this through. There's no washers or anything. It's just very simple. However, I didn't line up very good. So folks, if you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, what we do here, you're probably wondering, You know, do you do this for every vehicle that you do on Brian Phillips RC? Because I see a lot of planes in the background, but not a lot of helis. Well, first of all, helis are harder to see. There's one right there. And then there's like 2 more over there.
Over there.
And then there's 2, 3 on that table.
There's a bunch, yeah.
And there's probably 20 in that closet behind us. And then there's probably another 30 to 40 of them downstairs. We have a lot of helicopters too. People know us more for fixed wing because that is admittedly more of what I'm into. But I gotta say, I really like helicopters too. And what you guys don't know is I actually had a Blade CP1 back in the day before I even had any of this stuff going on. It was totally before a YouTube channel and I sucked really bad. I was terrible. I crashed that into our cabinets. I told a story about it once on camera and it was an oak cabinet and I had, it was basically like, man, that is really stiff. So I'm gonna work this back and forth a lot.
You used to fly it in our unfinished basement.
I flew it in our unfinished basement,
right?
but at our old house.
Yes, not here.
And which would have been our second house in our married life. But didn't we have that in the old house? Yeah, we did because that was in the townhouse.
Where did you fly it there?
I flew it and crashed it in the kitchen.
Oh,
And I crashed it into an oak cabinet.
In that kitchen?
And that was when I lost permission to fly inside. But evidently I got that back after we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of planes
Oh, jeez.
and helicopters.
Let's see where I went wrong.
This thing is just really tight, guys.
Yeah.
I would like that to be like lubricated. I'm like wondering if I need to put a little lube on that. I don't, it's hard to move. Because even if I loosen this to the point where like the head's sticking out, which that is not correct.
Right.
It's still hard.
There is no way, by their directions of not fall under its own weight, there's no way it's going to fall under its own weight.
It's going to be impossible. So I'm just going to work it back and forth. If yours are tight like this, you better work it back and forth. I'm really tempted to take a screwdriver and just turn it in there to open this aluminum up, but such precision machinery, I can't conceive of that being okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just take a slather. There wasn't quite a slather. Oh yeah, I just got it all over the place. I'm just going to take a slather of, this is a high-tech instrument rated lube.
Yep.
Also known as Dawn.
It's actually not.
What is it?
It's just dish soap.
Did you buy some weird, crappy, frou-frou junk that doesn't work?
That you've been using for like months and months.
Whatever. I knew it was not working well. I want Dawn. I want the good stuff. So anyway, you guys probably don't know this, but as a kid, my mother was a salesperson for Procter & Gamble. And so I grew up with all these brand specificities in mind.
Yes.
My wife did not. And even after my mom died of breast cancer, when I was 10, that was fun. The company sent us gifts for probably like close to 15 years. That was pretty cool. Even with the lube, that is still extremely hard.
That's really tight.
Like, that does not feel normal. I wonder if I need to get some proper grease out, like white lithium grease.
Are you supposed to, that seems like a weird thing to grease.
Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Here's the M4. I have these properly torqued, easy to move, but not going to fall under their own weight. Maybe a little bit.
But
Okay.
barely. They
But
didn't
barely.
fall.
That
They're
one
like-
could probably use just a little bit of a half turn. Okay.
So
which
pick that up and hold it sideways.
I'm going to do that right now. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. I was hoping that would have been a more successful test, but okay, so just a little bit. Okay, they don't fall under their own weight, okay? But they're easy to move. Easy to move, yeah, okay. It's pretty finite, guys. You got to be picky to get this stuff to match. You got to turn them the right way too, which I always screw up. Okay, so these ones are a little bit looser, and that's usually the way I run those. I usually run my tail feathers looser because I tend to hit the ground more than a skilled pilot would. That's the truth. The truth hurts sometimes. Yeah, that's loose, but not falling under its own weight. That's what they say in the manual. Now, this, oh yeah, that's very, very stiff. And you can see there's like obviously room. See, that's loose.
Which is probably not good either, right?
It just means that there's probably too much finish on this blade.
Is it loosening as you work it?
I mean, it is loosening a little bit, no doubt. But the other thing is, this doesn't have a pocket to go up into, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay. Or does it?
The head sinks down.
What are you talking about? It does have a pocket. It does have a pocket. So if your nut is sticking all the way out, you've done something wrong. You got to get that nut to go inside. Yeah. Just tame yourself there, camera crew. There it goes. There it dropped in. Okay. Now I got to admit, like, it's definitely feels like it's working in some, but I'm like, that's just really stiff. Goodness gracious. Okay. So I'm going to just do this for a few minutes and we'll come right back. All right. So now I've got them, worked a little bit better. I'm still would say that they're a lot stiffer than I would want them to be. Okay. But I want them to be even. So they definitely hold up under their own weight. Okay. So there's definitely not going to be a problem there. Again, 2.5 millimeters if I didn't mention that earlier. And that's that for the helicopter build. Thanks, Clay, for this little tool. That was invaluable. And also, I'm just remembering at some point on the M4, we had to look at pitch range. And I don't remember like actually seeing that. I don't remember seeing that because it was under Ford programming. So now that we have this all assembled, I would have to trust it enough to plug it in again, okay? With everything set up the way it is. We have normal, we have throttle hold, and we have throttle stick down. So if I wanted to go in, I could do that, and I would feel safe doing so. But if in doubt, what you would do is you'd unplug your wires, okay? So think about it like this. If this spins around, look how close that is to my body. That's not the same as like a prop that's, a 16 inch or 12 inch or 14 inch. That's gonna be going crazy, and guess what's gonna happen? If it goes and it's got upward pitch, it's gonna pull up into my face. It's gonna be a bad day. So I gotta be super careful how we do things. And so the only way I would feel comfortable right now until I have everything set right would be to actually unplug the motor leads. However, I don't really know that I remember seeing anything. So we're just gonna do it. We're gonna play it safe.
Can you just unplug one?
No.
Okay.
No, because then it would still act, it could still pull it, pull it. Because there would be a certain range, and as long as it gets started going, it'll spin.
Okay.
It'll spin weird. It'll look like a misfiring
Which
engine.
would not be good either. So you have to unplug all of them.
If you're gonna unplug them, yeah. Because you can't leave the throttle unplugged from the servo plugs. And the only other thing you could do is you could undo the output shaft at the bottom, but then it might still have enough friction from passing through all the mechanisms to do that. Okay, so I guess I just wanted to show you what it looks like before we get to that next step, because my next step is probably going to be to go ahead and plug it in. Obviously this tool has made its own position on the handy dandy tool set, which is really nice, so thank you. But we did not use the pitch gauge at all, and so that makes me nervous that I have forgotten something. So admittedly, if we come back with another clip regarding the pitch gauge, you'll understand why. Also, just to be clear, you do have to have the blades on to run the pitch gauge, but the pitch gauge was designed and used on the M4 to set a plus 15 and minus 15. And in hindsight, I don't remember if that actually made a big difference other than setting our max up and max down on the collective. Okay, I don't remember seeing any problems here. But you can limit your trim travels to that 15 up and 15 down, or 12 up and 12 down, or whatever you want to set to. So that might be something I'll look into and come right back. Okay, so I had to summon the courage to test the thing. It's on, throttle cut's on, normal mode. Yes, it is ready to start spinning, okay? But I'm in forward programming and I have 3 other safety measures in place, but we have to have it on to check some pitch modes, okay? So because we're in forward programming, we are gonna obviously keep our throttle cut on. Even if we would accidentally disconnect, it would still be protected, and we'll just go back, okay? So you can see that everything is moving still, but no motor movement, right? So under swash plate, then you can go into pitch, and you can see normal, stunt 1. See, show them at, okay? So there's your pitch, and there's stunt 2, okay? So this is gonna give different values. They're all set to the same value, okay? Sorry, trying to get it to shut up. So now under governor, you can also set values here for the head speed. Okay? You can click and change that value. If you want to match things, this is what the recommended levels are. Plus or minus recommended collective pitch range here. So hard 3D would be plus or minus 13%. Low RPMs would be plus or minus 16%, okay? So it just depends on your flying style, okay? So this is just one of their recommendations. So I don't know if you showed them that whole page, but that's just page 20 from the manual, okay? But I just wanted to talk about that. Now, I remember, I am not gonna do that again. I remembered seeing something else. Okay, where we actually had to change these values, and that was on our last one, but we have updated our firmware since on the transmitter, and I wonder if that's changed the way that this thing works. So we're gonna look just a little bit farther. So type direction subtrim. Now, if I recall, when we were setting up the M4, we had an end stop sort of setup. And I'm not seeing that anymore the way that we did in that previous setup. Okay, guys? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just like not seeing it here. Because under the tail rotor, we have output setup, and you can do subtrim and travel. There was travel before. Do you remember that?
I mean, I remember we used the pitch gauge.
Because we used the pitch gauge to set this so that we could set it to move so far or not so far. But I'm just like not seeing that anywhere. And normally you would think that it would be right in here. There'd be like a sub trim, and then there'd be
something else under that.
Yeah, it'd be that. What was the word that we just found? And I'm at a loss for words right now. So the direction, of course, is already set. The type is already set, okay? And then the frame rate's already set. But then we don't have the same, well, unless it's a percentage. I wonder if that's what decay is. Phasing, and then AFR, pitch, collective, oh, differential. I wonder if the collective has to do with it. So throttle cut's on. I'm gonna go to the stunt 1 and moving up to like neutral stick. If I go all the way up, watch what happens when I reduce this. See that? that changes that. So it's under collective. So that was what, 42? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you can do is you can change this to meet the pitch requirements on your blades. Okay, guys? So this is where you would use your pitch gauge, and you would turn on your pitch gauge. You basically set this up so that it bites onto your blade. And then you can turn this on or off, and then, whoops. Oh, great. Now the batteries are dead in that too.
Oh, good. Sure. So you get to use it one time.
Get to use it once per CR.
Oh, it's one of those.
2032 battery. I'm hoping that it's just a bad contact point. I mean, it's not like we literally used it one time, guys. Okay, so we'll just try to get this thing back down. We do have a link to this if you guys don't know where. Yeah, it's dead. We'll get a new battery and come back. Okay, so now we got it working. We just had to find 2032 batteries, which we just had a few. Oops. So you open it up like this, and then you can set it onto the device. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my sticks to 0 like this. And then I'm gonna set this hopefully to 0. And then I can press 0. Okay, so I zeroed it. Now what I wanna do is I wanna look at my chart and figure out with the stick, throttle cuts on, idle up. So that's at 11%. Okay, so that's fine. Like I would be okay with 11%, all right? So the collective, there's minus 12, okay? So you could change that collective to make it whatever you want. So you could match whatever you want, okay? So in my case, if they're saying 13 or 12, why don't we make it like 12 up? 12 and a half, whatever. And then 13 down. I'd probably rather have it more up than down. So then I'm gonna click out of that. I'm gonna change my mode. See, now that's 5 and minus 1, which makes sense because that's the way we have our pitch curve set up. And then in this mode, 13 and 12, okay? So we got minus, are they able to see that or not?
Yep.
Okay. So minus 13 plus 12. Okay, so I don't want so much minus, but whatever. I'm actually okay with it. It's not that big a deal. My bigger concern is, do I want to open this up for pitch and roll? I don't know. Okay. So if you want to change your pitch, watch what happens. It's going to change the amount that your pitch control has. Okay. So I'm going to leave that at 75 because that's where it is, okay? But I'm actually okay with that collective demanding 13 down and 12.3 up. If I went higher on this, then it would make a bigger change, okay? So in normal mode, if we wanted to change it, we would have to go out of forward programming and all that good stuff, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off the pitch gauge. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that's turned off, okay? And then basically at this point, I wanna make sure that's far enough away from me just in case all hell breaks loose. And I'm gonna walk out. And that should give you all the settings that you need. I don't think I'm missing anything. Okay, now we should be able to trust everything too. So when you walk out, now we're in regular mode. We have our throttle hold on. We're in normal, so it's not going to spin up on us. And we can move this stick and see what's going on. So it goes up, it leans forward, it leans back, it rolls left, it rolls right, and then pitch and pitch. That's the only thing we haven't looked at is as this spins, the ES3X tries to, is it going the right way? That actually might be going backward. See that? See, that goes out, which is gonna change the pitch the wrong way. See, when I give it input, that's gonna push that way, okay? So that's correct, and that's correct. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Okay.
But the problem is, the correction is backward. That's gonna exaggerate it. That's gonna exaggerate that, see? That's a bad thing. We need to fix that. That's one thing I didn't catch. Okay, so when I move this, Wait, hold on. Did I say that wrong? I might have been looking at the wrong blade. That is going to push that way. Because as this spins, it's going to push that way. It's going to put it into an uncontrollable yaw. So we need to fix that. So I think where we do that is in forward programming, tail rotor, and see how this is normal, stunt 1, and stunt 2. You can make changes to each of them, okay? So I'm gonna go down to setup, and then I'm gonna go to tail rotor, output, direction, sub trim, travel. Obviously the direction, if I reverse this, then that means when I move, it's gonna be correct. When I move, that's correcting the right way now. So what's gonna happen is as I go this way, it's gonna push air that way. And then when I pull this way, notwithstanding the actual stick condition, it's going to push air that way. Or is it? That would be blowing air that way. That would be blowing air that way, because as it spins, it's gonna push air that way. That's correct, but then is this correct? Okay, so if I want to change the nose position, that would yaw me that way, okay? That would yaw me that way, which pushes this way. That would, things get backward in helicopters, guys, if you're not used to helicopters. That would push the tail. I want the nose to go this way, which would push the tail that way. So we just never reversed it. Okay, now I'm gonna check for center position. I'm gonna go to output settings again, sub trim. See how it's 30? Does that seem about right?
Yeah, still
90
seems
degrees, seems pretty close. I'm just gonna scroll it. Actually, you know what? Now that we've reversed it, 0 is closer to what we need. Okay, so I'm gonna walk back. So in the center, when I demand that the nose goes that way, it's gonna definitely pull the tail that way, right? Or if I demand that the nose goes that way, then it's gonna push the tail this way, okay? And then the correction is obviously correct. Okay, so guys, we almost missed that. Why do we check and recheck our work? Because we don't trust ourselves, A, and B, because we are infallible humans. And infallible humans make mistakes, and the more infallible you are, the more mistakes you make. Okay, so if you wanted to change settings for this, you would have to change those settings with your throttle hold on. You would go into your pitch curve or your pitch curve, and you could make changes to how much you actually change your pitch based on the condition. Now, I don't want to switch out without getting this thing outside and playing with it a little bit and see how it works, but I know and I'm confident we're not going to see more than 13% pitch, so I don't care. Okay, now if you're doing a really low head speed, then you can actually run this at even more pitch, okay? But we are going to move it at very little pitch because I'm kind of a pansy or something like that. Now, I know you guys are dying to see this thing with the canopy on, so I am going to just spin this back to the neutral position here because I like it that way better. And I'm gonna unplug my power. I'm gonna grab these two things. Actually, I am gonna leave it on, but I'm not gonna have it plugged in. But I'll have the lead tucked in and around because we obviously have to test this at some point. I'm gonna grab this. We're gonna see how it fits. Obviously it's unplugged, so we're totally safe to do this. And when they have the two grommets, which is really nice. On the M4 and the M4 Max, they have the exact same canopies, but different colors to choose from on the M4. So I'm super excited. Now, I always thought it was kind of challenging to get the M4 on because you had to go into this little thing, but mine fell straight in. That's pretty cool. So it went right in. And then I'm gonna pull this and slide that on. Really easy fit with this battery. Really good fit, guys. That was way easier. You remember how much I fought it with the M4? Mm-hmm. So that is a pretty sweet Heli And I'm super excited and honored and privileged to be able to be a part of it, guys. This is gonna be a sweet endeavor. I can't wait to get it in the air. It is gonna be so much fun. And I hope it doesn't end in a fury of misery, pain, and suffering. Is there a place I can stand that this would be the best looking? I don't know. Let's trade spots. Let's go over here.
Okay.
So guys, if you are wanting to do this yourself and you're like me and you know a little bit about RC and you're excited for the prospect of flying a really big off with your head style heli, then you can look no further than the M4. This is the M4 Max, not just the M4. This thing is gonna be amazing. I can't wait to fly it. It is definitely the most capable by a long margin heli that I've ever had. And Brian Phillips RC is not a heli expert. So we hope that this video will help get you from totally unknown territory, maybe enough skill to fly a helicopter or an airplane, but not enough skill to set one up from scratch, to flying one and actually having some level of success in all three modes. And that's what we try to do here every day, or at least every time we film on Brian Phillips RC, is we try to help you guys get out of the seat and into the air. And the best way you can do that is smash the like button right now. Help support us by subscribing, clicking the bell for notifications so you know when new content comes out. I know not all of you are gonna like helis and not all of you are gonna like planes. Maybe you just like helis. So whatever your taste is, we're here to try to satisfy and help you get what you want. But a big part of it is learning how to use this, one of your most expensive tools. And there are a lot of things, admittedly, on the helis that we don't understand yet, and we're working our way through. Believe it or not, we were doing the same thing with airplanes just like this a few short years ago. We've only been doing this for about a decade now, and we have about 2,000 some odd videos available right now. So if you haven't already found what you want with this M4 Max and you want to check out the M4, which is the yellow one over here, again, we have that video already done and ready and published. You can watch it right this second. We also did a time-lapse build on that because it was a time-consuming build, okay? Probably a 3.5, 4-hour build for me, and that's with having limited experience. Clay from Buddy RC helped us out with this one and actually physically built it for us and shipped it assembled, less the blades, less the tail rotor. And basically we worked through putting in our receiver today, as you guys already saw, and we did all that setup. And obviously I'm gonna get some guidance from him if I have questions that come up. But at the end of the day, OMP Hobby makes one heck of a heli. And we are super honored, privileged, and excited to bring it to you right here on Brian Phillips RC. One of the first, but not the last, that's for sure. And soon enough, M7 will be rolling out. That's gonna be pretty amazing because that's darn near twice as big as this. And I think it's bigger than Clay.
And I'll be filming it from
inside.
Up there.
Up there.
I'll just stand up there.
So really excited to bring you guys these flights. If you haven't already seen the flight should already be published by the time you're seeing this Unbox build radio setup. And again, it's like an assembly. We understand that. We're not building this, but we want to just kind of follow a normal nomenclature. If you guys have questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll try our best to help you out by getting back to you. If you want more direct access, Patreon is one of the easy ways to get access to us for comments. We don't have that listed as a benefit, but it just kind of works out that way because of the way the system works. Also, YouTube members, special thanks to you guys too. If you're monthly supporters on Patreon or PayPal, PayPal would be like a one-time support rather, but PayPal and YouTube members are monthly support, so we really appreciate you guys. The monthly support really helps. Warms our hearts when we see it, but at the end of the day, we also have YouTube super thanks. We see those. Big high five to Brian Phillips and Megan Phillips and our 4 kids that are waiting for us to finish filming so we can eat dinner. That's always great. By the way, that's normal for us because we are really dedicated to what we do here on Brian Phillips RC. And if you guys haven't noticed that yet, we go to great lengths to try to give you good information, even when we're learning with you. Unless, of course, we don't know what F3A stands for, and that's super embarrassing. So anyway, that stuff does happen. And by the way, one of the biggest problems you have when you get into this RC habit addiction is that there are a million things you don't know. And you gotta start somewhere. And that's what we do on Brian Phillips RC. We start and we finish. And we will show you every step in the middle. That's right. So if you haven't figured it out and you're just figuring it out with us, alongside us, welcome to Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna get you in the air as painlessly as possible. Do not start with this heli. You might have way more pain than you want. And truth is, this is a great heli, but it is not a beginner heli. It might be a beginner heli for somebody that wants their first 6S platform from coming from a 3 or 4S, okay? But we try to give good advice, and that's what we do here because we do care about you guys. We want you to have the best RC experience. We also care about the vendors, manufacturers, hobby shops, and different distributors that we work with on this channel. And that's part of the reason why we want you to follow the links in the video description below, because when they are kind enough to work with us by either sending equipment or like literally building it for us too, which is huge. Thanks, buddy, for doing that. Buddy RC will have links to their stuff down below. If you buy from the links, you help to support guys like Clay and Dan that have really come alongside us and helped us in the heli realm. We appreciate you guys. Obviously, we work with Horizon too on this because we have the Spectrum gear, and the NX10 has been great. We haven't had any major issues. But I will tell you one thing. The one thing we've had issues with on these is the scrolly wheel. We use them so much, a lot more than the average customer. And so what's gonna happen is eventually, if you have problems with that, I gotta figure out a way to clean them with alcohol or something, because we've taken them in rain and had the scrolly wheel start acting kind of jumpy. We had that happen on our NX8 V1. We have our V2 right now. And then I feel like this one's starting to do it. And that's what we do on Brian Phillips RC. We tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help us God, even though we do really proselytize the NX line. We've been very happy with them. Okay, so maybe what's next is the NX20. It would be easier to film. It's got a bigger screen. We'll have to talk to Jason. But anyway, the point is this, guys. We love this hobby. We love the hobby community. We want to bring you the best. We want to grow the hobby. We want to have more legislative authority. We want to have more people doing it. We want to sell a lot of things so that the price gets driven down so that more people can afford it. And it's basically where we're going to end up. Because at the end of the day, these manufacturers could pick a million things to do that would be easier, cheaper, safer, less regulated, but yet they still choose what they love, and that is RC. So it's a compelling enough argument to give them your dollars and cents. When you're ready to get into something like this, look no further than the links in the video description below. That's the #1 way you can support Brian Phillips RC financially, is by doing that. And it will help to stem on the production of further videos by basically funding our whole RC apparatus. So that being said, if you guys didn't know we're digging a pond, that's our next stage. There's more after that, kind of a lot more. And we are in the midst of planning a lot of it. And it is very complicated and way more expensive than we can tell about on camera. But if you ever see us in person, I'll talk to you about it in some detail that you'd be surprised, because I do it all the time. Because at the end of the day, we want to be as transparent as possible without being off-putting. That's the easy way of putting it. But we do love this hobby, and the hundreds and hundreds of RC products that we've reviewed have really helped to enrich a lot of people's lives, and we hope you're one of them. All right, guys, that's all you got. M4 Max. Turn me on. Already did. This thing is awesome. Can't wait to see it in the air, guys. It is going to be one of the sweetest helicopters I've ever flown, and it might be for you too. So check it out. Thanks for watching, guys.